Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Never Split Up podcast. This is episode 13, and today we are going over our top 10 classic horror villains. How's it going, Anthony?
It's going good. This is going to be a banger of an episode, a big one today.
Oh, yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for a couple weeks now. As you guys know, I love my villains, so this is my sweet spot here.
Yes.
And we're going over the classic villains. So just a couple disclaimers right off the bat. This is pre 2000s. So any villain
Right.
from a horror movie that's pre 2000 is qualified. Anything after 2000 doesn't count.
Right. So just keep
Obviously,
that in mind when you're listening. Like no art, no Megan, no new stuff, no Victor Crowley, no nothing after
yeah.
2000. So we'll get to that eventually. We'll get to those modern lists eventually.
Yeah, I thought it was important to at least split it up into classic and then modern because if we did everything, it would just be I'd have to do like a top 30 at least. Like it would
First
get
of all, I
crazy.
couldn't sleep over this list. I couldn't get this list down. So if we included that, I would never be able to make a list.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I guess our second disclaimer, it kind of goes without being said, but this is our personal favorite top 10
Right.
lists. So we're each going to go over our top 10, but this isn't,
Yes. This
like
is
a
a
meta
subjective
list. This
list.
is just
Yes.
this is just
Yes.
our favorites and
Right.
I
We all
think it
have our
makes
own
it
taste, so don't hate on us.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
makes it more fun that way. And I guess a third disclaimer: we don't know each other's lists, so this is going to be a complete
Right.
surprise to both of us. So I've been really nervously looking forward to seeing what you have on your list and where you have your rankings. So that's going to be fun
Yeah,
too.
so live reactions. So if you want to see us, watch us on YouTube to see how we react to each other's lists
Yeah,
rather than just listening.
this is going
Yeah.
to be a good YouTube episode because you'll get to see our reactions. Yeah.
Yeah, if you didn't watch our Chucky episode, I can only imagine what this episode's going to be like.
Yeah, the Chucky episode. Yeah, yeah. Anthony was pretty ticked off with me, I think, on that one. But
Surprise, I was
yeah,
shocked.
stay tuned to see if Chucky makes my top 10. Yeah. But before we get into that, I will announce the winner of last week's Never Split Up poll. That was our episode 12, the menu poll, and it looks like Anthony won this time. He squeaked by a few votes, so congrats to Anthony. He had
Thank you
the
guys.
men's not sticking together. That was a good moment. I figured that would be
It's
a
actually
strong
pretty
moment.
funny because like I had the men, we just pretty much had the opposite. You had the woman and I had the men, and I was thinking together. So, you know,
Yeah, kind of the
pretty
same
cool.
moment because it was the same
Right.
scene, but for different
Same but
reasons.
different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was cool. So we talked about this beforehand. I guess you'll get to pick who goes first. So we're gonna alternate between our
Right.
picks. So you'll have it's not really an advantage, but you'll get to pick if you want me to go first or you to go first, and we'll take it from
And we're
there.
gonna go from 10 to 1, just so everyone knows we're starting, from our least best to our favorite.
Hmm.
Right.
I'm sure you have a bunch of honorable mentions as well.
I
So
can't help it. It's just how I am.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Okay, well, let's get into this because this is going to be quite a episode. I think we're going to really have a lot to say about our picks. So why don't we dive right in right away? We'll
Okay.
do our honorable mentions first. Do you want to choose who
Yes.
goes first on that, or we'll just run through each of
I'm
ours together? Like I'll go
Yeah.
first and then
We
you
can
go
just kind of like
first.
wing off each other, but I just want to do again. Don't tell me if any of these are on your actual list, but I just have a special shout out to
Okay.
like the true classics because it's hard for me. Like I want to shout out, Nosferatu from Count Orlok. It's a 1922 movie. It literally is the reason why we have a horror genre.
Hmm.
So we have Count Orlok, and of course the Universal monsters. I just feel like they belong in like a separate list with themselves because it's just so legendary. Like I said, they're the reason why we are talking about horror today still. So I just don't feel right like mixing them in a top 10 because there's another level. Like you
Yeah.
can say to a 5-year-old, "Do you know who Dracula, Frankenstein, or Wolfman are?" And you can say the same thing to an 80-year-old, and they both say, "Yeah, of course we do." Like it's just they'll never be replaced. So like I said, Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, Invisible Man, The Bride of Frankenstein, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Mummy. I love these movies. I have them all. I didn't grow up with them, as a horror geek, history buff, I went back and I appreciated and fell in love with them, but they won't be on my list, but I just wanted to give them their own shout out because they obviously need to be acknowledged. I don't know how you feel about that.
Okay, so your disclaimer basically is a shout out, but none of them. We're not going to be seeing any of them on your list.
No, because
Okay.
I can't put one because they're just grouped together. To
Yeah.
me, they're grouped together. They're just so classic, like they are the OGs.
Yeah.
So they're on a separate list, just in their own ballpark that they deserve.
Okay. Yeah.
For me.
I'm glad you said that. That's a good disclaimer because I don't have a lot of those guys either. So
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
going to be
Just to let everyone know that, like, I know I love them. It's just, you know, to fit them in and pick and choose, it's just nearly impossible for me. So that's what was a special shout out before even the honorable mentions for me.
Yeah, and again, this is our personal favorites, and while we
Right.
recognize what they did for the genre and how iconic some of those characters are, like I
Mhm.
didn't grow up on Nosferatu. Like
Right.
he's
I
a
watch it as, yeah, exactly, to appreciate it, and,
yeah,
obviously, I watch I have the Universal, like, the 30s and 50s
hmm
movies, it's just, out of respect,
yeah,
but I just can't pick I can't put Dracula on my list and not Wolfman or Frankenstein, so you know what I mean? It's hard, I can't pick.
okay. No, that's a good disclaimer. So you can
Right.
just get that out
So
of the
that's
way.
before my honorable mentions even start. It's not another
You
shout
already have a list, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So you wanna do the let's get into some of our honorable mentions, we could, go off each other and see and if my honorable mentions are on your list, obviously don't tell me and vice versa.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to ride that
Yeah.
line of like reacting to people on your list,
Right,
but if it's coming up on my list, gonna try not to spoil it for everyone else and for you because you
right.
don't know my list, obviously. So I'm just gonna make some generalized comments on
Okay.
when you talk. But
Right.
yeah,
You're not gonna tell me, "Oh, hey, that's my number 9." Don't tell me
yeah,
that,
no,
yeah.
of course not. Yeah, because that ruins the surprise. Yeah.
Right.
Do you want to go
So, yeah, so I'll
first or do
just
you
shoot
want to go
off
back
one
and forth?
I'll shoot off we can
I'm
go
sure
back
there's
and
gonna
forth, but
be
I'll just shoot
overlap,
off
but
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I just wanna say it was so hard for me not to put these on my like, it was excruciating for me not to put
yeah,
some of these on my top 10, it
yeah.
just had to be done this way, but my first honorable mention is Annie Wilkes, Kathy Bates from Misery.
Okay,
What a performance.
yeah,
She created the Bitches Be Psycho in that movie.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, the scene when she just oh, what she does with him in the bed with the log and his ankles, it's just unforgettable. She won an Oscar for this movie for a reason. I mean,
That's
Annie Wilkes
awesome.
is an
Yeah.
iconic yeah, she's an iconic character. It introduced us to the wonderful Kathy Bates too. I mean, she didn't make my list, but she's up there as far as female horror villains go
Oh yeah,
for me.
she's on my honorable mentions too. So
Right.
this is
Okay,
good.
cool.
She's iconic. I love Kathy Bates. She kind of started the whole like talk about toxic fandom, Like she did it before it was cool,
Right. I'm your number one
before
fan.
the internet. Yeah, she was pre all that and great movie, Stephen King
So
adaptation
good.
and she adapted that character so creepily. It's yeah. She's
And
up
I
there for
try
me
to
too.
watch it like every couple winters because it's a winter movie and it holds up great.
Mhm.
1990. I think it's a great movie, great character. Yeah, she killed it. So yeah, that's one of my.
Yeah,
You know, it
that
hurts
third
for me
act
not to
is
put
so
her. Yeah,
intense. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool. So
She
our
owns the whole movie. So
first
we have an
one,
overlap in our
we
honorable
have an
mention.
overlap. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'll go
All right, you
next.
should off one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go next. Honorable mention for me. This is a big one. So, you might be surprised that it's not on my list, but it's Leatherface. Leatherface is an honorable mention. You know this about me, but I just have to say it, even though we're going to be covering these movies. I like the remake more than the original for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I grew up on the remake. I think it was what was it like
2003.
2004, 3. Okay,
Three.
that was
Yeah.
4. So I that's like the sweet spot for me. So I love Leatherface, but I don't love him in the context of the original. Now I do like the original a lot, but when I think of Leatherface, I think of the remake version. And I don't know if that's fair or not, but that's just, my preferences. But he's still iconic enough to land on my honorable mentions. The sequels get a little wacky, but that original movie, man, from the 70s, I forget what year it was released. You're better with years than I am.
74. Yeah,
74. I mean,
74.
that just was such an iconic movie, and that third act was so intense, and the dinner scene, and yeah, Leatherface. He's pretty cool. He's got such an iconic look with his skin mask and his chainsaw. chain skulls are just terrifying. Um, just a terrifying concept. They're so loud and brutal. So, but yeah, I couldn't quite slide him into my top 10 just because the original doesn't. I don't like it as much as the remake, which might be controversial. So I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on that. But he's an honorable mention for me.
Dude, this we were talking before we started recording, and I said there's gonna be one that people hate that is not in my top 10, and it's Leatherface. He's in my
Oh,
honorable mentions
okay.
too.
Wow,
So,
there you go.
and I love
Wow.
because you kind of like took a lot of the word, like you took a lot of what I wanted to say.
Hmm.
I also prefer the 2003 remake and the 2006 prequel to the original. I love
Yeah,
the original movie so much. It
yeah,
is a classic for a reason. His look in the original is iconic. The issue with me is because we're doing pre 2000, I couldn't include the remake and the
you can't.
prequel.
Yeah,
So I,
because it's a
you know,
remake. If it was a sequel, then
right,
that can be lumped
exactly.
in. But yeah,
And my thing is also with the original, he's scary and terrifying with the chainsaw, but he's almost his family's puppet in the original.
yeah.
He's not like I feel like in the remake and the prequel, he's his own like he could be killing people if his family weren't there. He doesn't give a shit. In the
Hmm.
original, he's doing it because his family is like tormenting him to do it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
he's a little more handicapped in the original, so it
Right.
makes him
And
a little less
also
scary, I guess, in your
with
eyes.
the sequels, yeah, exactly, and with
Okay.
the sequels, the 86, the 1990, 1995, the sequels, he's so different in each of those movies, he doesn't
Yeah.
have a through line, so
Yeah.
I feel like I couldn't include him because of that. He changes so much in every movie, I don't have a through line with him, so,
That's a
he
good
changes
point
up too
too.
much. So, yeah, he's my honorable mention too. I'm surprised that, so we might get
Yeah.
some heat.
Was that the comment you made about your parents, how they were upset?
Nope,
Oh,
nope,
okay, it's a different person.
not
Okay.
yet. Oh, my dad's gonna text me and hate me.
Really? Uh-oh. Shout out to
That
Aunt's
wasn't it. So
dad.
wow, I'm in shock that yeah, okay. So yeah, Leatherface is
So
not on
we're
my
on the
list.
same page
Exactly.
so far. So
Right.
far, so good. It can only go downhill
Right.
from here, though.
All right, so let me throw off another one. My next one is going to be Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. The
Okay.
actual like killer within the movie
Okay.
because everyone talks about Hannibal Lecter, but
Yeah.
Buffalo Bill, he has how many memes do you see of him like put the lotion on the skin? Like it's
Mhm.
just it's so iconic and he's terrifying when he kidnaps the woman, throws her in the van. His look is freaky when he's doing that dance. Like once you see that, it's like seared into your brain. So I've never forgot that since the first time I saw it. And every time I watch again, like this dude is like horrifying. When he chases Clarice like in the basement when it's pitch black, terrifying stuff. So yeah, Buffalo Bill makes the cut for honorable mentions. He doesn't get talked about enough.
That's a great choice. I would agree with everything you said there. Yeah. That's a unique one because you said it's not the main antagonist that you think of when you think of that movie. I mean, Anthony
Exactly.
Hopkins just totally steals the show, but
Right.
Buffalo Bill in his own right, yeah, he was pretty freaking scary. Yeah.
Right. And he's the
I
climax of that movie.
I can't
Yeah.
help it again because I guess it was the generation, but I can't help but think of Joe Dirt whenever I think of Buffalo Bill now. That terrible movie, but it's just I
Oh
love
my
that
god.
movie for so many reasons, and I
I
think
mean,
I
just
might
think of
have
it. He's Yeah, go
seen
ahead.
Joe Dirt before
Oh, that
Silence of the
ruined
Lambs
it.
as well. So yeah, that
But
he's a
like,
great
think about
villain,
it.
but I can't help but think of that
Yeah.
scene. Yeah,
If you think about like villain wise, like he's kidnapping woman to kill them and skin them alive to create skin for himself. Like that's horrifying.
yeah,
He has a status as a villain. He earns
cool.
it.
Yeah. Well, going off the same vein, my next honorable mention is Hannibal Lecter. I have
Okay.
him on my honorable mentions. What more can you say? I mean, Anthony Hopkins, just some of those iconic lines, so sinister looking with that mask. Um, just, I didn't watch this when I was a kid. I watched this.
Oh
Well,
really?
I
Okay.
should say I did watch this like probably when I was in high school, but not as a young kid. Because this was a '90s movie.
I think 91, like 90
91,
or
so
91.
it was around my whole life, but I didn't watch it until I was maybe like a teenager, and it freaked me out. Even as a teenager, I was like, "Wow, that was a pretty power." I even knew back then like how good of a performance he put on, and just was so tense and so iconic. And I think he probably gave me a nightmare or two. That evil smile he had, and the classic lines, obviously. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
Hannibal Lecter, gotta be mentioned on my honorable mentions. Doesn't quite make the list. Didn't have as much impact as the people on my list had, but he definitely deserves a nod from me.
You know what's crazy? I believe in the original, like in Silence of the Lambs, the first one, he had like under 10 minutes of screen time and he still made that much of an impact. That's when you know
That's crazy.
he's a damn good actor and
Yeah.
he's like he earned his status right there.
Yeah,
I
we've
love
talked about
the
that
scene when he,
before in
yeah,
our
yeah,
podcast, how like maximizing your screen time, and that's what makes a good
right.
actor, you
They
know?
certainly did.
Yeah.
And I love how he played off of Clarice. Like he's a smart killer. Like
Oh
he's
yeah.
intelligent.
Oh
And he
yeah.
helped her solve a murder on top
Yeah.
of being a murderer. So it's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, that's a good honorable mention.
Awesome.
All
I don't
right,
know how
I'm
many
gonna do.
total you have, but I guess we'll just
I
go keep
have a
going back and
couple
forth.
more. I have
I
a couple. You have a couple more.
Yeah, I have I might have more than you. I have 8 total.
You have 8. Okay, I have
Yeah.
4 more to go.
Okay, so I have like 5 or 6 more to go. So we'll just keep going
Okay,
back and
yeah,
forth for now.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple I didn't include at all, and we'll get to that. But I have Bruce from Jaws as an
Ah,
honorable mention
wow.
because
Okay.
I was terrified to go in the pool after I saw Jaws. I
Yep.
mean, how can you not mention Jaws? I know that's not on many people's list because oh, it's just a shark, but
Mhm.
terrifying. That first one like gave me nightmares. I saw it as like a 3-year-old kid, so
Yep.
I didn't even want to take a bath. You know what I mean? Uh, yeah. What can you the iconic score? You know that we call him Bruce because that's what the crew named him. That's when it said Bruce.
Yeah.
When they're
Yeah,
making the movie,
it's a
but when you
female
hear
in the
that,
movie, but the cast and crew
yes,
called him Bruce during the filming,
yes.
so that's what he's kinda known as.
When
Yeah.
you hear that dun 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 dun, it might be the most iconic like horror score of all
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
But Bruce and Jaws is coming. So yeah, just some crazy, terrifying scenes when he pops out on that boat. It's crazy stuff. I always think I'm like you can't when he's sliding into his mouth like there's no hope left. You know you're just gonna get devoured by a
Yeah.
shark. Terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jaws makes my list. My honorable mentions. I wanted to put it in my list, but I'm like, oh, I just can't because all the other people on my list have so much character.
Mhm.
I'm like, I can't put a shark on my list, but he gets an honorable mention shout out.
Okay. Yeah. Man, Jaws. Like I was the same way. I couldn't go into like the deep end of a pool without checking it first for so long when I was a kid. And that movie, I have it on 4K. It still holds up. It's one of the
Yep,
few movies I have. I'm not a big physical media guy. Obviously, Anthony is if you look at the background.
a little
But
bit.
yeah, I have that one on 4K and it still holds up. And there's a couple scenes where looks a little dated, but the fact that knowing the difficulties they had handling Bruce on set and how difficult it was to get some of those shots, um, it makes me like appreciate those shots even more, even though they are a little dated. It really like as a movie buff, I'm like, wow, the fact that they pulled that off, really incredible.
And I'm happy they had
And
those issues because I think it worked out to the film's benefit to make it
yeah,
more scary because we don't see him as much. He's in the shadow. We don't see him, so it's like,
yeah,
what's there? I think it's scarier not knowing than seeing with the
yeah.
shark, especially. And
I just think it's
and I
so cool
think
too that
yeah,
I know that we're talking about the villain itself, but we got to mention Spielberg and how he
oh yeah,
started in horror. Like that's awesome. How that
he
kind of put him
created
on the
the
map.
horror, the summer blockbuster, and it's a
Yeah,
horror movie. So again,
yeah.
horror again doesn't
I
get the
really
credit
wish
for
he would go
starting something
back
again.
and do a horror movie
Yep,
again.
he
But
should.
yeah.
And I think the effects actually are better than some shark movies we get today. So I mean,
hmm
again, this movie is a 1975 movie, like crazy.
Well, yeah, and we've talked about this before. I think you've talked about this. It's the fear of the unseen and the unknown, and there's a lot of
Yes. Right.
shots, POV shots, and stuff. You don't really
Right.
see the shark throughout most of the movie, but it's so freaking
Exactly.
scary, man.
Like that
Yeah,
opening scene is like
so iconic.
literally the definition of classic when she's going
Yeah.
swimming in the water and she just gets pulled down, but we don't see him.
hmm
Horrifying. That's when
Okay.
people say like, "Is Jaws a horror movie?" I'm like, watch the opening scene.
Oh, are you
It's
kidding me?
110%
Yeah.
a horror movie.
Course. Who says that? People
A
actually
lot of
ask you
people
that?
say that. Like,
Really?
is it a? I'm like, no, it's a horror movie. It's
Obviously,
not a
they've
film.
never seen it because that movie is
Exactly.
terrifying. Yeah. All right, let's keep
Yeah.
the
So
ball rolling.
Jaws. Yep.
Yeah,
Go
let's
on.
go. Let's keep going. My next one is going to be Pennywise. To the
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry. Sorry, yeah, I blanked for a second. Tim Curry's version of Pennywise, obviously, because this is pre 2000s. I never really had a huge phobia with clowns like other kids. I never got that phobia. But Tim Curry's Pennywise, I mean, you'd be stupid to not be scared of that guy. That guy is so scary. And the movie itself, I guess it was technically like a 2-part miniseries, but I call
Yeah.
it a movie.
Me
Um,
too.
I have issues with the movie itself, but um, this is where it was hard for me on this list in this episode to separate the villain from the movie. And how could I not mention Pennywise? I mean, so iconic, so scary. Um, hey Georgie, like his line delivery and his
You want a
smile and
balloon?
yeah, like so good. But like I said, I didn't really have like a total fear of clowns, so maybe that's why he didn't make my top 10 list. He was pretty close to cracking it, but I had to leave him off, unfortunately. But great performance by Tim Curry. I still think that version is scarier than the newer version. I love the newer movies more. I think I like the two newer movies more than the original movies, but I love the original classic design of Pennywise for Tim Curry. I'm really excited for the I think HBO is doing a show, like a prequel show. That's going to be
Yes.
cool.
Yes.
Yeah, because you know me, I love backstory and I love villains and stuff, and seeing the backstory of villains. So that's going to be cool. But yeah, Pennywise.
Wow, we are like weirdly like on the same page because Pennywise is also on my honorable mentions.
Oh,
Pretty
great.
much for the same exact reasons you said.
Okay.
I never had a personal fear of clowns, but he is terrifying objectively.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So when watching the movie, and he has some pretty great interactions with the characters and lines. Tim Curry, he just murdered that role. So yeah, I
mm,
don't want to say too much. Pretty much agree with everything you said. I do think the 2017 and 2019 movies are like leagues better than the miniseries, but something about Tim Curry's portrayal
yeah,
as Pennywise just stuck with me throughout the
yeah.
years.
Me too. So we're
Yeah.
pretty much
So
right
yeah.
on the
Yeah.
same page with that. Yeah,
Yes.
cool.
Yes. All right. So I'll throw one out. My next one is Damien Thorne. You all know how I feel about kids, and Damien from The Omen. You don't get much more evil than that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that movie is also special to me. It's 1976. I saw it as a little kid, and I just knew there was something wrong with that fucker. And at the end of the movie, when he turns around and smiles, that image like is freaky as hell. He watches his mom fall off a balcony and just like smiles and does nothing. He's terrifying. Yeah. So Damien Thorne, he was really close to cracking my top 10 because I do have a fear of kids, but he just missed out.
yeah. Okay. We're gonna have to cover this because I really don't remember The Omen. You're gonna hate me
Oh
for this, but
wow,
I
you're
watched
gonna
it like
love.
once. I watched it
Okay.
once a long time ago, and it's one of those classics that I haven't gone back to, and I've been
Okay.
meaning to,
Wow, you
but
need to watch it.
yeah, I'm not really brushed up on The Omen, so that's cool to hear though that he was good enough to make your honorable mentions. So we're gonna have to
Yes,
cover
and
that
he and
soon.
actually the sequel is all of it's called Damien the Omen 2, so he's
Okay,
even gets
I don't
more
even
of
think
like
I've
a
seen that one.
okay, yeah, the
Yeah,
sequel doesn't get as much love, but it's actually a really good
I
sequel.
didn't even
He's
know there
like
was a
a
sequel.
teenager. Oh yeah, there's like 3 of them, 4 of them, I
Really?
think, and then the
Oh,
remake.
I gotta brush up on
But
my
in the
Omen.
sequel, he's like a
Yeah.
teenager, so he's really an asshole. So you gotta check that out. So that between the original and the sequel, he really earned his spot on my honorable mentions. Great stuff. And the score in that movie. I know we're talking about the villains, but the score
Mm.
when you know he's doing something, oh, it's so good. Wow, I'm
Yeah,
excited for you to
it's
rewatch that.
oh yeah, me too. It's hard not to talk about the movies with some of these villains because it
Yeah,
elevates the villains so much, like the
exactly.
score and the lines and the delivery and the script and everything. So yeah, that's fine. But okay, let's keep it rolling. I have a few more. My next honorable mention is going to be, and this is probably no surprise to you that it's not on my top 10. It's going to be Chucky. Yep, Chucky. I had to put him on my honorable mentions because I even said this in our Chucky episode. And if you guys haven't watched that, go back and watch it. We have some varying of opinions on the original Child's Play, but he's so iconic. I mean, I know it's my personal favorites, but I do like his design, and I do like, and I think I mentioned it to you. I do like the sequels. As I don't
Yes.
think there's many like super lows to the franchise, so he had to make my at least my honorable mentions. What can you say? It's a killer doll, and especially in the original, the practical effects, like he looks so cool. And talk about line delivery. I mean, some iconic lines, but I have a feeling we're going to get into that a little bit later in the episode. Some of those lines, but yeah, he's not going to make my list, but he does make my honorable mentions. So hopefully you don't totally
Okay.
strangle me that I left him completely off. But
I'm not that surprised after our episode on Child's Play. But
yeah,
yeah, you said he's iconic, and I think Brad Dourif is like the crucial ingredient on top of his design,
Mhm.
I don't think people would be talking about Chucky to this day if, he changed voice actors every movie, so it's
Yeah.
really important that we bring up Brad Dourif. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not in shock. A little bummed, but I'm not in shock that he didn't
Yeah.
make your list.
You should be proud of me that I at least mentioned
Yeah,
him.
you give him a shout out, so I'm all
Yeah.
about it. Alright, my next one is the one that my dad is gonna hate me for not putting in my top 10
Okay.
because he's, like, terrified and this is, like, his, like, ultimate movie. It's Pazuzu Reagan from The Exorcist.
Wow. I'm surprised it's not on
Yes.
your list either. Wow. Okay.
It's not, and I don't even know how to describe it. It's because the demon is in her body and he takes over, and the movie's iconic. It never came off to me as a iconic villain. It just was like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like a demonic possession. I don't know. It's different to me than a
Okay.
villain because he's taking over this poor girl and she's doing the act still. It's just he's fucking her up.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I mean, you can't say much about The Exorcist that hasn't been said, and I want to wait to get into it until we get into the movie. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to give a shout out because Pazuzu is terrifying and arguably is part of the subjective most terrifying movie of all time in the public's opinion.
Mhm.
So just wanted to give a little shout out. I mean, that head twist, I mean, what they got away with in 1973. I mean, him like stabbing her with the crucifix, having like possessing her to
Mhm.
stab herself with the crucifix. I mean, the throw up, the vomit. I mean, you can't really get more classic than one of the OG supernatural possession movies. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Pazuzu needed a shout out. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Dad, but he's
Yeah,
terrified of that movie.
I'm
He's
surprised.
terrified.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually on my honorable mentions too. It didn't make my list either.
Okay.
It's I think you really said it. It's a terrifying movie, and I think it's one of the few movies that still holds up today.
Oh
Even though
yeah.
it had like crazy effects, practical effects and CGI. Did it have much it didn't really have CGI.
It didn't really have
No.
CGI. It's just
But
all yeah.
the effects are really dated, but they still hold up. And it's so scary, but didn't yeah, I mean, in terms of iconic, like, my favorite villains, it just didn't quite kinda what you said, it just didn't quite crack the
You
top
know what
10
it
for
is?
me.
It's more about
So,
the mom and daughter, the characters, like their
yeah.
journey, than it is
Mhm.
about Pazuzu. And it's just about because it's really a drama on top of a horror movie. So I think
Yeah.
that's why, because I think about when that movie, I think of Reagan and Chris, her mom, right away. Obviously, the demon's there, but it's just more to me. It's like a character journey for them than it is about the actual
Mhm.
demon. So that may be
Yeah, now that
why.
you're saying
Excellent
that,
movie.
I
Yeah,
draw parallels between that and Hereditary. How
yeah,
Hereditary is
exactly.
terrifying, but, like, the villain in Hereditary, Paimon, is not really, like, iconic.
Right,
It's
right.
more
Do
about
you
the
think of
family
payment
and
first, or do you think about like Tony Collette, like banging her head on the ceiling? You know what I mean?
yeah, it's technically Paimon doing it, but, yeah,
Right,
I
right.
know what you're saying.
You know what I'm trying to say? It's like the
Yeah.
character versus the villain within itself. So
Mhm.
that's why it had to be mentioned. I mean, you can't not. The
Yeah,
Exorcist is an all timer.
great
So
explanation,
yeah.
and, Ant's dad, try not to, kill him. I need him for my partner as a for this podcast.
I told him I was doing this list, and he was like, you gotta have Reagan, you gotta have the extra." Yeah, I'm like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah. So he doesn't know. This is a surprise to him?
He doesn't know yet, so you have
Oh,
to
wow.
listen. You have to
Okay.
listen.
Alright. Alright, yeah, I got a couple more,
Okay.
this is one that, it was actually on my top 10 for a while, but it just didn't quite crack it in the end. This might be a little controversial because I don't know if people consider this a horror movie, but I definitely do. It's, Predator, the original
I'm happy you
Predator.
brought this up because
Yeah.
it segues into something I want to say. Yeah.
Okay.
No, go
Yeah,
ahead.
he is so cool. Growing up, I always wanted to, my parents to, like, buy me a full Predator Halloween costume, the ones that, like, cost, like, $1,000 because, like, talk about, like, badassery, like, I would put the Predator up against any iconic villain, like, on my list or your list, like, they are so cool, and, the movie itself is great. The first 2 movies in particular are awesome, and, Arnold Schwarzenegger, that whole final showdown at the end, um, yeah, I had to put Predator, and I think it's a horror movie, especially the first one, and I don't
No,
know
it
how
is,
you
yeah.
think.
Horror action. You can have different subgenres within horror, sci-fi, horror action.
Mhm.
I'm happy you said that because Predator, the Xenomorph from Alien, The Thing, they're not on my list or honorable mentions, but I acknowledge them. They're great movies. Obviously, I love John Carpenter. I love The Thing. Alien is a slasher movie in space, and Predator is awesome. It's just not my go-to subgenre. So
Okay.
none of them,
Yeah,
by
I
default, none
figured
of them
because I
make
know
it.
you're not a
Yeah,
huge sci-fi
because
guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I enjoy watching those movies, but they're not my favorites because it's just my preference. I don't lean into the horror sci-fi as much. But yeah, glad you brought it up so we can at least acknowledge those creatures.
Okay.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Do you have any more?
Uh, yeah, I have one. I actually have one. I don't have one honorable mention, but I was Carrie is so special to me, but I don't look at Carrie as a villain.
Oh
I'm
no,
rooting for her in the movie,
I
Carrie
look
White,
at the mother.
protagonist.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Margaret White is the villain of that movie, and she's horrifying. But I don't have them anywhere because Carrie is the face of that movie,
Yeah.
and I don't think Carrie's a villain. So I just want to
No,
bring
neither
that
do
up quick.
I.
Yeah.
No. Fuck them
Yeah,
kids.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Fuck them kids.
Yeah.
But my last big honorable mention is
Okay.
I was struggling so hard because it was like flip of a coin almost to put him on my top 10. But my last honorable mention is Candyman.
Oh, okay.
Candyman,
Yeah.
Candyman, Candyman. I mean, Tony Todd is like, Helen, Helen,
Mhm.
be my victim. I mean, it's so eerie and haunting and like poetic. It's just, oh, that movie is a masterpiece. Doesn't get talked about enough. But Tony Todd, I mean, you look at him, whenever you look at him, his presence in that movie is just insane. And I love his relationship with Helen. The sequel is not as good, but I think the sequel's fine. But that original, he just earns his stripes in that original alone. So it was so hard for me not to put him on my top 10, but he
Mm.
just missed it. Clive Barker created an awesome character. Yeah, he just does it to the max in that movie. And I was terrified when they did Candyman in the mirror and he is like
Yeah.
hook comes through the mirror. Horrifying as a kid watching that. I'm like, holy shit, I can't go to the bathroom. But he just missed my list and it like killed me not to put him on it. It really did. I was struggling till like an hour ago to
Hmm.
put him on honorable mentions in the
Wow.
list. So yeah, he just missed it.
All
Just
right.
missed it.
There you
And it
go.
kills me.
Yeah. Yeah, Candyman definitely he nailed it. That's another movie similar to Omen. I've seen a few times, but I'm excited for us to eventually cover that because I'm not like a huge Candyman fan. I realize the movie
Okay.
is really good, and I'm not saying it's not objectively good, but it doesn't really I guess to spoil it a little bit, Candyman is not going to be on my list because
Okay.
didn't really I guess I didn't really grow up with it as much. It didn't really strike me. He does perfectly fine. He's a great villain, but I guess the story never really resonated with me like
Okay.
others. So yeah, he didn't quite make it for me. But
Okay.
that's a good pick. I'm a little surprised that because I know you love Candyman. I'm a little surprised it didn't crack
I
it. So
know.
I'm
I
excited to
was
see your
like
top 10.
obsessing over this. Yes,
Yeah.
my 10.
Just to wrap up my honorable mentions, I actually have two, but the first one you're going to be a little upset with is Ghostface. Yeah,
This podcast
Ghostface.
is over. I'm going to bed.
Ghostface, and I have my reasons. I have my reasons. You don't have to comment, but I have my reasons. Scream is a great franchise. It's awesome. The original Scream and the sequel to Scream were in the 90s, but I can't include the rest of the movies because Ghostface is different in every movie. So it's similar to like you said about Leatherface. Ghostface is a weird one because it's the image and the costume, but it's obviously a different killer every single time, and then there's multiple killers within the movies. So I was struggling how to approach this. Like, do I pick certain Ghostface to have on my list? Like, do I pick Stu or do I pick someone else and have them on my list, or do I just use Ghostface as an overall? And I didn't want to get into the weeds with it, so it's a weird one because it's so meta and it's so like I said, it changes so often. So the first Scream is iconic. It's great. The second Scream is an awesome sequel, but I just maybe if it was the same character throughout, I definitely would have had that on my top 10 if it like throughout the five movies. But because it's a different villain, actual villain, I can't really put him on my top 10, but I had to mention him just because I mean, you see behind Anthony, that mask is so iconic and just so cool that I had to at least mention it. But yeah, it would have been a little disingenuous to put him on my top 10 because again, it's really hard to judge because it's a different, you know, person in every time. You don't have to say anything because I don't want you to like implode on me. But
I have so
yeah,
much to say, but I'm just not going to say anything yet. Look
I
behind me,
almost
guys.
wanted
Look behind me.
I almost wanted to bring this up to you before the episode to see how you were going about it because I really struggled with this. because it is a different character in every single. So I don't know how you're going to handle it, and you don't have to tell me
Yeah,
yet.
I'll
So
elaborate at some point because I
yeah,
have so much to like go back at you at not go back at you, just like counter you. But I want
yeah,
to wait
no, that's
because
fine.
it's gonna
Yeah,
be a good discussion when we actually get into it.
yeah.
I mean, we all knew that was gonna be somewhere on my list, so it's not a
Yeah,
spoiler. But we'll get
it's
into it.
tough
Yeah,
because that franchise is so consistent, but like I can't include the sequels that were in the 2000s because it's technically a different character. So it's a bummer. I really wanted it to make my top 10, but I it just didn't crack it. And then just real quick, um kind of similar to what you said at the beginning, I have Frankenstein on there. Um
okay.
just because he's iconic. I didn't really grow up with him or anything, but talk about everyone knows Frankenstein. I think out of all those classics that you rattled off in the beginning, he might be the most famous. Um,
Him and
but
Dracula are up there. Yeah,
yeah, so I
that's
had to
why I
mention
just feel like they
Frankenstein.
just they have their own legacy. That like to me, it's like they're not even like they're more worthy than a top 10. You know what I mean? They're just
Mm,
like they're
okay,
separate. You know? Yeah. So yeah,
all right. Well, yeah, that's our honorable mentions, guys. I know it kind of took a while, but
it
definitely
was
wanted to
important. We
highlight
had to do it.
those.
Yeah, we had
Yeah,
to.
yeah, and those were in no particular order. Obviously, I know you just said uh, Candyman almost made your top 10, so I guess that would
Yeah.
be
So that
like kind of closer to your top 10, but
yeah that
at
was my
least
like you know
mine weren't really in any order, so don't kill us on our picks. We want to hear from you if any of those made your list and how high they would be for you if you're bummed out that we didn't include someone at the end of this
And we
episode. Let
still
us
love them
know.
all. I mean, we give them shout outs for a reason. We love them all. It's just you have
Yeah,
to have a top 10.
there are so many villains to choose from when you go pre 2000s. I mean, that's like freaking what, 70 years of filmmaking. So,
Exactly.
the
Yeah,
fact that
that's
they even
literally
made our
almost a
honorable
yeah.
mentions is a pretty big shout out. So,
All right, are we ready for the
let's do
top
this.
10?
Do you want me to go first?
I'm
You
so
have the
nervous.
choice.
I just want to hear. Well, I mean, I have a feeling we're gonna end up at the end of the list, but I just really want to know your list. So let me hear your number 10.
Okay.
I'm nervous.
Here we go, guys. Our top 10 classic horror villains. I'm going to start. My number 10 is Dracula.
Okay.
I put him
Okay.
on
So you
there.
have
Yeah. I had to put
awesome.
him on there because he stands out for me over the others because I'm a vampire fan. We've talked about this before, especially the original
As am I.
1931
Yeah.
film is so iconic. Bela Lugosi is who I think of when I think of Dracula. His performance in that movie is so iconic, and a lot of that, what was in that movie, is what spawned kind of the tropes for vampires in later movies. So, and I love vampire movies. So I had to put he stands above Frankenstein and the others for me just because I mean it's Dracula, dude. I mean, come on. And then,
It's Dracula. Yeah.
Bram Stoker's Dracula. I mean, so 1990s. I love that movie. It's so cool. But
Yeah. It's hard.
it
I
all
mean,
started with the original. Bela Lugosi. He's just so
right.
iconic and so good, more than the
Okay.
rest. And
Cool.
yeah, I had to give him the nod.
It's not even like what Dracula and like that all those movies did for horror, just what they did for filmmaking in general. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just crazy. All right, cool. I'm happy that you have
that
a
movie
classic.
came out in
That's literally a
1931
classic.
and is
Yep.
still like I still
Studied.
enjoy watching it.
Exactly. It's
It's
studied to this
so
day.
good.
It's
Yeah.
people find something different every time they watch it. Like I said, I have the whole box set of all of them, so awesome.
But it's funny that you did that disclaimer in the beginning of this episode
Yeah.
because the reason I put Dracula in my top 10 is to kind of give a shout out to all those others
Okay.
too. I have Dracula at the top, but that's kind of an homage to all the classic
So
monsters
we
and
just
stuff.
went
So
about that in a different way.
yeah,
I
I had to
couldn't
give them their own
include just
spot
one.
almost,
Right.
but I gave it
Exactly.
to Dracula. Yeah,
Yeah, I had to give them their own like shout. Yeah, we did it in different ways. They deserve
yeah.
their own shout out, but awesome. Okay.
Okay. All right, here we
Well,
go.
look,
You're
my
number
number
10.
10 is going to be so much more not revered because my number 10 is the most 90s pick ever. My number 10 is the fisherman Ben Willis from I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh no.
People are going to hate me. That slicker jacket, the fisherman outfit. Oh, I love it. It does. We need a requel. We need a requel. We need another
Oh
movie.
my
Yeah,
god. That is
I'm
so
a
funny.
'90s kid, guy. I'm a '90s kid, and the fisherman outfit with the hook.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
that's great.
so good.
That's
The
great.
way he chases Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, Helen, oh, through the streets on 4th of July, it's so
Was the
terrifying.
sequel in the 90s as well? Does that count?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. Yeah.
So the original was 97 and the sequel was a year later, 98. So that's
Oh,
why I
okay.
included it
Cool.
because they're both the same character. Ben Willis is the fisherman, and he's after Julie in both movies. And it's just, oh, I don't know. It's like post Scream, but it's also kind of classic slasher villain as well. Because, like you said, Ghostface
Yeah.
changes, but
Yeah.
the fisherman, he's the same in both movies. I don't know. There's something about that look that's just creepy to me, and the way he walks. So I knew I was like, I know that's like on not on like 99.9% of people's top 10 villain
Yeah.
lists,
Yeah.
but I don't know. There's something about him that I just had to
That's
include
awesome.
him because of
Yeah.
that look. Yeah,
That's
and
great.
it's my personal list because I had to give him a shout
Yeah,
out.
it's your personal
That
list,
chase
and
scene,
again, we're
his chase
separating the
scene with Helen.
villains. Yeah.
Yep, his chase scene with Helen is like literally might be my favorite chase scene of all time.
Okay. Awesome.
So
I
yeah, I
didn't
had to put
really
the
I
fisherman. Yes,
I know you love those movies and you
I
look
do.
back on them fondly, but I didn't know you really regarded them that highly. That
Yeah, I
you
do.
really
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
Okay.
like up there for me. And Ben
Cool.
Willis Fisherman, he is awesome. Awesome
Cool.
stuff.
We're just adding to
Yeah.
our list of movies we got to cover soon. So
Yes.
we'll definitely
So
do
yeah,
that in the summertime. Well, that's a
that was my
summertime
pick
movie.
that I knew. I'm like, I'm gonna get no one to agree with me on that one, but it's my list, it's me, and I had to put him in there.
Awesome. That's you said that's 4th of July, right? That's not Memorial Day. It's
Yes.
4th of July it takes place. So
Yeah,
maybe
it's
we'll
4th
do
of
that
July, those
around
movies.
4th of
Yeah,
July.
we
Yeah.
should because I have a lot to say and it'll be a blast.
Cool.
So rewatchable. Those movies are so rewatchable. But anyway, yeah,
That's
that's
a
my
doozy for number 10. That's
that's my fish out of water. Like, whoa, what the hell is he on tonight? Pick.
yeah.
Yeah.
Starting out with a bang. Yeah, I went with like the super safe route and you like
I just said our contrast is
Yeah.
like you cannot contrast
Yeah.
more than that pick. So yeah,
That's funny.
90s
Okay.
slashers, guys, my sweet spot. Yeah,
Awesome.
my number 10.
All right, great. Let's get to number 9 then. Number 9. And this is a classic example of separating the villain from the movies cuz I'm not a giant fan of this franchise, but this villain creeps me the hell out. My number 9 is Pinhead.
Okay.
Pinhead number 9. My brother introduced me to Hellraiser when I was a little kid. I've talked about this on the podcast before. My brother had a pretty big influence. I should call him up and thank him because he had a really big influence on me.
We should have
And
him on for an episode. Just
yeah,
like
we
we're
should.
gonna
Yeah,
plan to have some people
but
on, like my sister,
I
him. We
remember
should do it.
him
Yeah,
showing me this when I was like freaking, I don't know, like 8 years old, and like saying like you got to watch this movie. And seeing Pinhead was so scary. It gave me so many nightmares and so iconic that look. I haven't watched the remake yet. I think it's on Hulu because I'm so scared that I'm not gonna like the new design. I've seen like still images and stuff, but I'm so nervous that it's gonna like kind of not ruin it for me because I know how to separate originals from different works, but I haven't gone to it because I love having just that one image of Pinhead, and it still scares me when I think about it. And I know I'm gonna have to look up Google Images for Pinhead when I put together this episode, and I'm still gonna like
for
get
sure,
shivers down my arm because so scary. So, and that first movie is really solid. The sequels not so much, but the first movie is solid. And yeah, I gotta go with Pinhead as my number 9.
okay. Yeah, Pinhead's nowhere anywhere for me. I love the first movie. It's a great movie. That franchise never just clicked with me. I mean, I'll watch them, but they don't really do much for me.
Hmm.
It's just a little too. I don't know. I can't even describe. It's a little weird for me.
I agree with you, and the franchise never clicked for me too, but Pinhead clicked for me
Yeah,
in
whenever
terms
I
of
see Pin,
being
I'm like, "Oh,
terrifying.
that's a good
Yeah,
looking villain." Like
yeah,
obviously the pins in your face.
yeah.
Yeah, great villain. They didn't make it. He didn't make it anywhere for me because I don't go back to his movies as often as I should.
Okay,
Um, but maybe I'll give him a rewatch and I'll change my mind. Good pick though.
cool.
All right, so my number 9, it's a classic. All right, so my number 9 is Here's Johnny. It's Jack Torrance,
Okay.
Jack Nicholson in The Shining.
Hmm.
He had to make my list. I mean, talk about. I was actually choosing between Jack Torrance and Candyman, and when I had to come to the decision, I'm like, well, I have Jack Torrance tattooed on me. I don't have Candyman tattooed on me, so it has
Yeah, I
to
was
be
gonna say, yeah,
Jack Torrance.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much that hasn't been said about Jack Nicholson's performance in the movie, but that scene when his wife, Shelley Duvall, when she's going to the typewriter and she sees the all work and no play make Jack a dull boy, and you see him behind her, it's like, oh,
Mm,
the
yeah.
definition of just this is classic stuff. This is haunting and terrifying when he's just walking up to her slowly, like I'm just gonna like I just want to like he wants to kill her, but she's swinging at him, and then when he obviously goes through the door and puts his face in the door, I mean, his evolution to a madman in that movie. It's just, and every time you watch that movie, talk about getting something different from a movie. Just watch that movie, and Stanley Kubrick really knows how to fuck with
Mhm.
your head in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jack Torrance, man.
Well, you said his evolution. They really
Yeah,
took their time with him in that movie and really showed you his descent into madness, which is what makes it so effective when, the third act does come along. It's like super freaking creepy. Yeah, that one scene you were talking about, like I still get like shivers down my spine when she's looking at all the pages and it's like just
yeah.
imagining him typing the same thing over and over again. It's like, holy fuck, this guy, they need to get the fuck out of there.
It's oh, it's one
Yeah.
of the all-time greats, and he's when he's chasing Danny through the maze too. That scene is so suspenseful.
Hmm.
And they're so isolated, so they're stuck. Like they're only. It's just them and him, so it just makes him even more like intimidating, and because there's no one there to help them.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that
You
movie, and
might
I
see
love
this
Jack
reflected
Torrance.
on my list with a few of my choices, but isolation in horror movies
Okay.
is really strikes a chord with me.
Yes.
Being isolated is really spooky, so I don't want to give too much away. But my number eight, we'll just move right along because I know as we keep getting into it, we're gonna have more and more to say. But
Yes.
my number eight is might be a shocker to some people that it's not higher, but it's Freddy Krueger. Um, Freddy Krueger, just one of the big, I would say the big three in terms of slasher
Agreed.
icons. Um, what can you say? I mean, Robert Englund is just so iconic. He his line delivery. How could he not be the original? Again, I'm not a huge fan of the franchise as a whole. That's probably why he isn't higher on my list. But the original Nightmare on Elm Street is so damn good. It is so freaking awesome. Some of the practical effects they did with the blood coming to the wall and stuff, and how they turn the room upside down, and the opening kill is so iconic. um the glove, I mean, does it get more iconic than Freddy's glove?
Does
So
not.
cool. My brother had a replica glove that he didn't have it on display. This wasn't the time of collectibles. This was when kids actually played with toys. So in the 90s, my brother had the glove and he would like chase me around with it and stuff. So yeah, Freddy, just super iconic. And I know this is pre 2000s, but shout out to Jackie Earl Haley because I actually like the remake. I don't like some of the choices they did, but I think he that's such an impossible task to live up to Robert Englund, and I thought he made the character his own and actually made him pretty creepy in his own right. It was I actually thought that was a pretty scary movie. I don't know how you feel about the remake, but not to get too
Yeah,
much
we'll
into it,
we'll get
but
to that franchise
yeah,
eventually and talk about the remake.
Freddy Krueger, yeah, is just an icon. Had to be on my list. He's a little bit
Yeah,
lower than maybe you would expect, but he's great.
yeah.
There's nothing.
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. That original movie has so many
Yeah,
good lines. He's
I
so good.
know.
Yeah, like you said, there's really when nothing compares to Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. When
Yeah,
you think about, I mean, everybody knows who Freddy Krueger is, and Robert Englund is irreplaceable. You can try to fill his shoes, but like when the first thing people will think of in 100 years from now, when they say Freddy Krueger is not, when they make a new movie coming down the line, they're not going to think about that first. They're going to think about Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger because
yeah,
he is Freddy Krueger. Well, I'm happy he's on your list, even if it's number eight.
yep. Oh, definitely.
Cool. All right. Well, let's just keep this going. My number eight is actually one from your honorable mentions that I didn't talk about too much. It's Hannibal Lecter. He's on my list.
Okay, awesome.
Um, like,
So you
like
got
we'll
two
go over it
villains
again.
from the
Yeah.
same movie on your list and honorable mentions. That's
Yes.
awesome. Yeah,
Yes. Silence of the Lambs is my one of my all time favorite movies of all time.
cool.
And Hannibal Lecter, Anthony Hopkins, what he does with such limited screen time in just one movie is crazy. That mask that he's wearing when he's all like in that secure device when they're like
Whew,
transporting him,
I know.
it gives me chills when you just
Yeah,
like when you're thinking about it and you get
yeah,
chills. And his line, like "Hello, Clarice," like the first time, it's just so eerie and sinister. But he's like, intrigued by her. It's just it's so good. His one of the best lines that he has in that movie is when he goes, "I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti," and he does that.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I used to quote that all the time as a kid.
I mean, it's so good. Or like,
Yeah.
I would do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. It's just so smart.
Mhm,
It's so good. I mean,
mhm.
Hannibal the Cannibal, man. I mean, he is just when she's walking up to that cell for the first time and he's just standing there like silently waiting for her. Oh, it's just oh, he's so good. It's just
Mhm.
masterful. So there's no way that he couldn't be in my top 10. Very special movie for me, and he just murders that role. He murders it, and deservedly so. They acknowledged him for some reason for an Academy Award because they don't acknowledge horror, but he was so good that the Academy
Yeah.
couldn't even ignore it. So
Mhm.
yeah, it had to make my top 10, number 8.
Great. That's awesome. Yeah. Not much more can be said. I mean, he made my honorable mentions. He didn't quite crack my top 10, but so freaking scary, so iconic. Yeah.
And
That's
he
a
might be
great.
the most intelligent villain, that we talk
Yeah.
about. Real
Yeah.
life villain, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So now we're getting into it. We're getting towards the middle of our list, and this next one's might be my dark horse of my list, and that is pun intended because my number 7
Uh-oh.
is the Headless Horseman from Sleepy Hollow.
Cool. Cool
Yeah,
stuff.
I love the Headless Horseman. I always resonate. I remember seeing the cartoon when I was a kid. I think in school we used to watch The Legend
Yeah,
of Sleepy
Ichabod Crane,
Hollow.
yeah.
Yeah, Ichabod Crane, the Headless Horseman with throwing the pumpkins and everything. I always thought that was so cool. And then when Tim Burton, the Tim Burton movie from the '90s is so fucking good. I love that gothic horror
Me
vibe,
too.
and there's something about the Headless Horseman that just makes me think of Halloween whenever I like think about
Yeah,
him.
that
Like
that,
it
like,
just kind
October
of
spooky vibe, yeah.
yeah, and Halloween
Winds
is
blowing, yeah.
both of our favorite holidays, obviously. And I just love the Headless Horseman. I'm actually thinking of you were talking about your tattoos before. I really want to get a badass Headless Horseman piece somewhere, like maybe on my
Cool.
thigh or something. Yeah, because he's just so cool. He's not like the scariest, but the whole concept of like crossing the woods and getting to the bridge uh, is so cool to me. And I almost wish that they tackled that again. I know they did a show on Fox like 10 or so years
Yeah,
ago that I
I don't
I
think
actually
that
liked it.
compares to okay, I
But
don't think
it's
that can
different.
compare.
It's way
Yeah.
different than the story. But I hope they adapt that story and do like a modern horror movie, like an A24 like super fucking creepy movie where you
Yeah, I
gotta like
agree.
get through the woods or something because that has the potential to be really scary. But yeah, the Headless Horseman just I love him. I don't know why. There's something about him. I'm not even like a huge horse fan or or anything. I
You
just
know what it is? It's
think
the
it's so
visual of him. There's
cool.
something about the
Yeah.
visual that just really gets to
Yeah,
you.
with his like Civil War getup,
Yeah.
his black getup, and the pumpkin head where he
Even
throws
the
the flaming
cartoon, I'm so happy you
pumpkins.
brought up the cartoon. That cartoon's, like, so special to me because I
Oh,
used
I
to watch
love the
that all the
cartoon.
time.
Me
Yeah.
too. Yeah, it just resonates with me. I don't know why. Like I said, not the scariest adaptation
You
of a
like that
villain,
gothic
but
vibe, though. You like those gothic things, I feel like, the
yeah,
gothic stories. I feel like you like that.
yeah.
I love it too. Well, I'm happy we both have because you don't see the fisherman or the headless horseman on many top tens villains. So
No,
we both have like a fish
yeah,
out of water pick. So I'm
yeah.
happy. That's a good pick. That's a really good pick.
Thank
Now I
you.
kind
Yeah.
of want to go like watch Sleepy Hollow like
Oh,
after
it's
this
so
because I haven't
good.
seen it in a
Yeah.
long time. Wow, cool. All right, so that was your number 7, right?
Yes, number 7.
Okay. All right, my number 7, Nolan. Hi, I'm Chucky.
Uh
Want to
oh.
play?
Okay. Okay.
Chucky
All right, so he's not
is
top 5.
no,
Okay.
he's not top 5, but he
All right.
has to be my top 10. I mean, he's one of
I
the king of
respect
the
it.
80s. He's one of the king
Mhm.
of the 80s. Like I mean, we went over a lot in the Child's Play episode. Check that one out, guys. But his evolution through the franchise, he just gets more front and center in your face with iconic lines, much like Freddy Krueger. And I
Mhm.
actually think Child's Play too. I don't want to say too much because we're going to cover that relatively soon, but it might be the best use of Chucky in Child's Play 2. And he just like Brad Dourif as Chucky is just as important as the animatronics, and he just carries the legacy of him throughout all these years, going on, over 30 years, 30 plus years. It's just, you look at Chucky and he's iconic. He's the face of the '80s. He's the killer doll. I don't care what anybody says. He is the killer doll that started it, and he will always be
Oh
the
yeah.
top dog. You
Yeah,
know.
I can't argue with that. Yeah.
Yeah, like we talked about it a lot in the episode, so I don't want to say too much. But Chucky definitely earned his place in my top 10 at number 7, close to the top 5.
Awesome. Definitely check that episode out, guys. If you haven't, our Child's Play episode was a couple weeks ago, and we dive into that movie. And if you're listening or watching us for the first time, we do a lot of horror movie reviews, and we dive deep into these movies. So we go kind of almost scene by scene. They're pretty lengthy reviews, and I thought that was a fun episode. We both had a different
Yeah.
opinion on the original Child's Play, but I can't
Yeah,
wait to
and
get into those sequels
yeah,
and
it'll be
talk about
fun.
them more. Yeah,
And it's fun because Chucky, he has to like be a little more creative and like hide a little bit because he can't just like chase his victims because he's a doll. So he
yeah,
has to almost like set up his how he wants to kill them and like hide beforehand. So I think that makes him stand out a little bit too.
yeah. Okay, great. Okay, here we go. Number 6. This is another one that I think you're gonna be surprised by. I don't. I'm not gonna see this one on many top tens, but
Okay, I like that.
this one. I don't know if you know this, but I love this movie. I don't know if we've really talked about this movie before, but my number 6 is Dr. William Weir from Event Horizon.
Really?
Yeah,
That's a wacky
Sam.
movie.
Yeah, dude, I love that movie. I just watched it last week again. It's so creepy, man. Sam Neill, man, is so good in that movie. And I know you talked about Reagan and how you kind of didn't want to put that on your top 10 list because it was more of a possession, but I couldn't leave him off. I mean, he's number 6 because his performance in that movie, especially in that third act, is so awesome. And without I definitely want to cover this movie too, Event
Yeah, we
Horizon. It's
will.
my favorite sci-fi horror movie of all time. It's so freaking creepy to me that again, that isolation that you have is so present there. And the characters, Lawrence Fishburne is in the movie. You also have Joelle Richardson. She's in a lot of movies that you'd probably recognize her from. She's a pretty good actress. But the characters are really smart. They don't make a lot of dumb choices, which I think elevates the movie because it makes you want to root for them even more when they're making smart choices. But back to Sam Neill, I mean, some of the most iconic line deliveries for me um, come from this movie. I wrote a couple down that I want to highlight. Where the obvious reference when he says where we're going we won't need eyes to see, like
Yeah.
obviously referencing one of my favorite movies, Back to the Future. And then the one
It's
line he
clever.
does, yeah, the one line when he smirks at Lawrence Fishburne, and Lawrence Fishburne's when he's telling him, oh, we got to get back to the ship, we got to go home, and he smirks and he goes, I am home, and then he goes into the shadows. Oh, like
First
so
of all, that
iconic.
visual of his face in that one scene, it's like you have
Yes.
to watch the movie to see it, but it is creepy. It's
Yeah,
messed up.
because he's
That's a good
half in the
choice.
shadows, and
Yeah,
then he smirks and he goes, I am home. And then he backs into the shadows. You're like, holy fuck, this guy is. Because you were still on the fence, like, he was battling
right.
something in his mind. But in that moment, you're like, oh, fuck. Like, he is totally evil at this point. And yeah, he's not evil the entire movie. I actually have a theory on that movie that when we cover the movie, I want to talk about because it's one of my favorite movies, and I think I have a different opinion than most in terms of his character, Doctor Weir's character. But because a lot of people take the conventional approach that he's like a good guy, but I don't know. I don't know if he's a good guy right off the bat. So definitely
That's
go
yeah, that's
watch
a
that, guys.
choice that's not yeah, that's a choice
It's a
that's not
great
on many
sci-fi
lists.
horror
Yeah.
from the 1990s, and I know it kind of got bombed or it kind of got panned and it didn't do well, but I think it's getting a cult following now. I think people are looking
Yeah, it
at it
does, 100%.
a little bit more
I was
in a
just
better
checking to see
light.
if I have it. I can't remember, but now again, I have to rewatch that because that's not one I've seen it obviously a few times, but I haven't seen it enough to like comment too much.
Yeah,
But I
man,
remember it being like it's just a cool, like unlike any other movie kind of
dude,
horror
it's
sci-fi. Yeah,
creepy, it's freaky, it freaks me out. Yeah,
I need to watch that. Yeah, that's a good choice. Like, yeah, that's not going to be on many lists, but that's
yeah.
awesome. Sam
And
Neill does kill it in that
I have a
movie.
lot to say about that movie. I know they had to edit the movie a lot, and
I was gonna say there's the new cut. I have the real cut, I believe.
well, there's the real cut, but then there's cuts that never saw the light of day that are
Oh, you're
on
on the
like
cutting room floor. Yeah, I
yeah,
know.
that even the what's his name? The director, Paul W.S. Anderson. He's
Yes.
actually one of my favorite directors because he's directed some of my favorite movies growing up. The Resident Evil movies I know aren't really liked, but especially that first one is so cool. And he's done a lot of cool movies. He did that movie Death Race, so he's done a lot of
Yeah, I like that. There's
cool movies. Yeah, but he was talking the scenes where they show the crew in the other dimension, not to, if you haven't seen the movie, not to give it away too much, but they're kind of like quick little uh hits of the crew going mad, but the original cut was like extended scenes of that, and the studio said, yeah, we can't add that in the movie, we have to
it's a
burn that.
shame because I want to see
Yeah,
the director's vision.
I know,
Yeah,
but
that's not going to be in many lists, but that's awesome. Now, again, another movie I have to put on my list to check out. I keep trying to see if
yeah,
I
and I
have it.
want
I
to
have
I
to
wanted
double
to
check.
get some variety in here just for people who haven't seen some of these movies too, to kind of get them to watch this movie because
I feel like we
again,
have a good
it's
mix so far. We both have like a
yeah,
couple picks that are out there, but we have
hmm
also the biggies too.
yeah,
Awesome. All right, so my number six is also one that's not going to be on many lists, many people's lists, but to me, it's like what terrified me the most as a kid.
mm,
And my number six is Kurt Barlow, the lead vampire from Salem's Lot.
mm,
Oh, I mean, I was young when I saw this. It's technically like you said about it. It's a mini series, but it was like released theatrically, like in other countries. But they made it a
mm,
mini series in the U.S. Whatever. But that face, that white face with the eyes—that's what I think about when I think about vampire. He's the first one I think about.
yeah, okay,
Terrifying when
okay,
he has that black cloak like under the kitchen table in that one scene and he disappears. Oh, it's scary, scary stuff. That movie. I think I saw it when I was 3 or 4, and that stuck with me throughout my whole childhood. Horrifying. I don't know, there's something about Kurt Barlow that he really just, gets to me. To me, he's the ultimate vampire, the ultimate and that house on the hill, when they go in the end to the house, you're like, "Oh god, they're gonna encounter him." It's just
yeah,
scary. I don't know, there's something about him in that movie that just the movement, it's just oh, it's so scary. So, so good. I think Reggie Nalder is the one who, like, portrayed him. He did so good in that movie. He didn't wanna do the movie, but then he
mm,
agreed to do it, and it's his most iconic role. Um, yeah, Kurt Barlow in Salem's Lot. To me, that might be the scariest one for me on my list. It's just,
okay.
oh, gives me chills. The creeps.
I
And I
I
cannot wait till
figured
we cover this movie
I
because
figured
we're
this
gonna
would be
cover it
on your
before the new one
list.
comes out. Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah,
It's my favorite.
I
Yeah,
know I knew
favorite
you were a big
vampire.
Salem Slot fan. You grew up with it. I didn't really grow up with it. This is another
Yeah.
case of I didn't see it when I was young. It's a spooky movie, but he doesn't really strike me like he strikes you, I guess, in terms of creepiness. The same way that Pinhead struck me. I guess it's probably
Okay.
similar. I didn't really grow up on Salem's Lot. I didn't see it when I was like super young. So but that's a good choice. Definitely iconic vampire for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see the interpretation of the new one. Yeah, he has to be on my list. It's just
Hmm.
that
Is
was
it
my
when does that
childhood.
come? That's this year?
I think that's undated, but it should come out this year.
Okay.
So we'll have to get around to this one before that comes out.
Big year for horror, man. This is gonna be
Yes.
a doozy.
Yeah, so
Evil
that's my
Dead,
vampire shout out on
Saw.
my list. Yes.
Okay, so we both had a vampire. I got the Dracula, and you had Okay, cool.
Barlow. My dude
Yeah.
Barlow.
All right. Well, here
Top
we go,
5.
guys. Our top five. Yeah, we're getting into it. We're rolling right along. My top five. Sticking with the. I wanted to break them up, but I had to stay true to like the actual ranking. I didn't want to break them up just for argument's sake, or just to
Yes.
do it. But I'm gonna stick with the sci-fi horror, and I'm gonna go with
Oh,
HAL
wow.
9000.
Oh,
HAL
wow.
9000. Talk about yeah, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Stanley Kubrick, man, HAL 9000 is the creepiest robot in all of cinema history, and like talk about
It warned us. That movie warned us.
I know, talk about line delivery. The actor's name escapes me. Do you know the voice actor's name?
I would have to look it up.
I
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
look it up, and I'm really sorry that it escapes me. But talk about line delivery. That robot is. You've seen that movie, right? You're familiar with that movie?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
I saw it
yeah,
in theaters when it came out a couple years because it's just like a masterpiece of a
yeah,
movie. Yeah.
yeah.
I had
Not
to go
only
see
is
it
it
in theaters for again,
visually,
yeah.
but it's so creepy. Yeah, HAL 9000, man, and quick shout out to the monolith too, because the monolith scared the shit out of me as a kid as well. Just this like ominous black structure. Um,
That's crazy how as a kid, like, this movie spoke to you, because I was more
oh
scared of it
yeah,
as I saw it as an adult, like, when I
no,
actually would
yeah,
understand it, you know what I mean?
yeah. This was another shout out my brother. He showed this to me and he prepped me for it and said, you know, I believe he told me when we watched this movie, he said, you know, half the movie think of this as just a science fiction movie, and the other half think of it as like a terrifying horror movie. And
Yeah.
I'm definitely in that horror movie boat. I mean, that movie is so scary, and just I have to go over some of these lines. I mean, they're
Oh,
so
yeah, for
iconic.
sure.
Um, when he says, "I've just picked up a fault in the AE-35 unit," I mean, that's so iconic. And shout out to my former boss and my good friend. He actually had that as his text ringtone on his phone.
Are
So
you
every time
serious?
I
That's
was in
awesome.
meetings with him, I would just hear that go off. Yeah. So yeah, shout out to him and of course the iconic "I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that." Oh, just gives me chills every time. And that voice, dude, that voice would like keep me up at night. It was
It's
so creepy.
perfection, yeah.
And the design of him too, just the camera lens, the red dot is like the close-ups of the
Simple,
red
but
dot
so
is so
effective,
simple
right.
but so creepy. Like he's such a mastermind in cinema. Like Stanley Kubrick, man. Only he could have
I
pulled
know.
that off. Like seriously.
Yeah, I'm not a huge horror sci-fi guy, but that movie is top tier for me.
Yeah.
Top tier, like, it's
Really? Okay, I didn't
that's
know
part of
that.
my yeah, top tier,
Awesome.
it's
I'm
just so
glad.
good.
Glad you appreciate
And
that.
that's the second Stanley Kubrick character we have in the list because we talked about Jack Torrance
Yeah.
already, so now we have 2 Stanley Kubrick shout-outs. That's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good, that's a good out there pick too, because that's not an everyday, person you come across on a list, character you
You
come
think
across on a
so? I
list.
think he's pretty iconic.
No, iconic, but I mean,
In
like, on a
certain
villain
yeah,
list, it's not in,
yeah,
like,
I
a lot of top
guess.
10s.
Yeah, you're right cuz
Cool,
it's
and that's in
yeah.
your top 5.
Oh yeah, top 5. I had to put him there. So creepy.
Awesome. Alright, well, let's get into my number 5, and my number 5 is one of the biggies, so he's on
Okay.
everyone's list. My
Okay.
number 5 is Jason Voorhees,
Okay.
is my number 5. He
Awesome.
doesn't
Yeah.
appear as an adult until Friday the 13th Part 2, but I mean, you have a character that when you look at a hockey mask, you think more of Jason than the sport hockey, he earns his status
Oh
as
yeah.
a classic villain. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what you can say about Jason. I mean, awesome. I do love the baghead Jason though in Friday the 13th Part
Mhm.
2. I think that's the scariest Jason in my opinion.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
really, really love it. And then I just love the evolution to the third one when he gets his mask. And like I said, in like Leatherface, we talked about how he's too different in the original sequels to like even have a through line and feel like the same person.
Mhm.
Jason, he changes his look here and there, but you still feel like, oh, that's the Jason Voorhees. He's just changing up his killing methods, but he's always, you know what I mean? He
Yeah.
still feels like the same character.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the sequels definitely take him to
New places, but it's
different
still
stratosphere in
right,
terms of
right,
like being an undead and stuff, but
right.
yeah,
But you
he's the
still like, oh, that's
same.
the Jason we
He's
know. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
exactly. And
Well,
his
he always
kills, I
has his
mean,
mom in his head and stuff, so
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. He's
exactly.
doing it
Yeah.
for the mama and to keep everyone out of the stay out of my forest, man. But some
Yeah.
of the kills, I mean, the sleeping bag kill, like being a kid, like watching that on TV. My mom, like, oh, what are you watching? Just Jason whacking someone against a tree with a sleeping bag. Like,
Mhm. Yeah. I know.
he has some of the best kills out of all the villains. I will say that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So yeah,
Awesome.
Jason has
So
to be.
number
And I
5
know,
for you.
yeah, my number 5, Pamela's not on my list, but Pamela deserves a lot of credit because she created the Jason that we know.
Mhm.
She like you said, she's in his head throughout all. Like he's doing it for her,
Mhm.
like she was doing it for him, which I like that contrast as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason, he had to be on my list. I mean, I can't not have him on my list. He's the '80s slasher along with Chucky and
Oh
Freddy
yeah.
Krueger. He had the most movies, I think. But
Probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
Jason's awesome. The kills are just crazy.
Okay, no comment. You want to block that, but yeah, that's gonna be coming up. Yeah, for
And we
me.
can't talk about it because it's post 2000, but I even like the remake as well. I
I
love the
love
remake
the
actually.
remake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to cover that. The
And
remake's
I don't want to
actually
say our
one of
favorite
my
movie or sequel
favorites.
because I want that's going to be a really good ranking. But
Mhm.
I think that
It's up there for me. Yeah, it's
He's
really good.
prominent in each movie. He's like he has the goods in each movie, so it's even hard to pick his
I
portrayal.
know.
Like, what's your favorite portrayal of him in what movie? So,
Mhm.
yeah, he earns his stripes hands down.
Oh, I'm glad it's in your top 5. Yeah, that's
Oh
awesome.
yeah, he had to be.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. All right, here we go. Number 4. And again, I wanted to break these guys up, but this is my list. So I'm going back to Jack Torrance for my number
Oh,
4.
nice.
So I got
Yes.
two Kubrick guys back to back, Hal 9000 and Jack Torrance. Jack Torrance, man, The Shining. I
Is
think I
that our
told you.
first repeat so far on our list? Sorry, on our
Um,
top 10?
you had
Yeah.
Jack on your top 10.
Yes, he was my number 9.
He was your number 9, right? Yeah, that's our
Yep.
first repeat so far, right?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yep. In our
So
top
there you
10,
go.
yes. Yeah.
So there you go. Number 4 for me. I mean, I couldn't keep him outside the top 4 because The Shining is. I think I told you it's um, the first horror, one of my earliest horror movies that I watched. Remember watching, and so scary. I mean, he is like, talk about like, I can't even describe it, like, because he's not Jason, he's not Freddy Krueger, he's just like this normal dude that just goes mad. And there's something so creepy about that. And like you said before, I love the isolation of it where it's just Wendy and Jack, and it's so fucking creepy when he is climbing the stairs and she's got the baseball bat. I mean, I love it.
That's
Obviously that's the iconic scene, but
and no one does a
there's
smile like Jack, like the creepy
I
smile
know.
like Jack Nicholson. It's
I
it's,
know.
it's
You said it, but
insane.
there's so many layers to his performance that if you
Yes.
like, I've watched this movie probably close to 100 times and I get like something
Oh
new out
yeah.
of it almost every single time. And like I said, they really took their time with him, and I he has so many lines, but I'm just going to highlight one quote. It's my favorite quote because it's my favorite Jack Nicholson moment in the movie. I don't know why this like struck a chord with me, but it's when he's talking to Wendy and he's like, I dreamed that I killed you and Danny, but I didn't just kill you. I cut you up into little pieces. Oh my god, I must be losing my mind. And he's just like trying to like convey sadness, but like in that moment you're like something's fucked up with this guy. Like holy shit. I
Even
love
the
that
scenes of
moment.
him like sitting at the bar, like you think he when he thinks he's talking to the bar, it's just like he's losing it, but his portrayal of it is just like I don't know, it's just so deep and
There's
just
an
scary.
underlying creepiness to the entire
Yeah, yeah.
performance. Yeah, it's so freaking effective. And then obviously that third act, like you said, running through the maze, and then that final shot of him frozen used to scare the fuck out of me. And
Oh yeah, when
I
he's
used
yeah,
to, yeah, I
and
used to
he's
have
like smiling.
nightmares. I know.
It's
Yeah.
scary.
So effective.
Yeah, that's gonna be a long episode because there's so much to go over in that one.
Oh,
But
I
I'm
know.
happy that he's on both of our lists.
So props to Stanley Kubrick. Uh, he made your
Yes,
list and he made my list twice, my number 5 and
yes,
number 4. Just a master of horror
cool.
for sure. Yeah.
All right, my number 4 is another one of the big three. Welcome to primetime, bitch. Freddy Krueger. He
Okay. Nice.
we said a lot about it already, but
Yeah.
Robert England, dude. I mean, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. Ugh. And Wes Craven is my guy. Anyone who knows me, Wes Craven is the ultimate. He created arguably the most iconic character in horror because people quote Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund to this day.
Hmm.
Um, he is just, and you know what's scary? I wanted to bring this up when you were talking about. I figured I should save it till we get to
Okay.
me. With these other killers, like Jason Voorhees, Chucky, Michael, whatever, any slasher, there's a chance you might not be able to because they're gonna catch up to you, but you can run away. What's terrifying about Freddy is we all have to go to sleep, and you can't
Yeah.
escape Freddy
Yeah.
because he's in your dreams, he's in
I
your
know.
nightmare, and that's how he kills you. So he gets the upper hand no matter what we do. You know what I
Yes.
mean? He haunts us in our nightmares, and I don't know if there's any more powerful villain than that.
Hmm.
So that right there, he's top five. I mean, he's top five for me,
Yeah.
because he kills you when you're in your most vulnerable state, sleeping.
Hmm.
Horrifying. When you
Yeah.
think about it, it's scary. I know the movies get humorous as they go
No, no,
along,
you're
but when you
right.
think about the concept, terrifying.
Well, I
Horrifying.
always thought you're relating it to us, the audience, but I always thought about that concept in relation to the protagonist in the movie
Right.
because
Right.
it's like once Freddy has his sights on you, like they're fucked because they have to go to sleep eventually. Everyone needs
Right,
to
and you even
sleep. So it's
see
like,
in the first movie, like, Nancy's trying her best with the coffee or whatever pill she to
mhm,
stay awake, but she even knows she's like, "I'm gonna end up going to sleep eventually. I have to try to prepare
yeah,
myself." Thankfully, she's a badass final girl, so she knows how to prepare
yeah,
herself, but everyone has to go to sleep. And that scene,
mhm,
I mean, talk about iconic with Johnny Depp in the first one,
yeah,
when the one thing she asked him to do is stay awake, but he went to sleep, and then Freddy just makes that blood splatter in his bed. It's just you don't.
mhm.
Some of the kill Freddy has iconic kills as well
Oh
because he
yeah,
can do because it's otherworldly almost because
yeah,
it's your nightmares. Anything can happen in your dreams. I A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, the scene when he's like puppeteering the one guy almost when he's
yes,
walking down the hallway, it's just that always made me cringe because he's like ripping his like limbs out
yeah,
and he's like holding him like a puppet. And it's just
uh,
I don't know why that scene always like got under my skin. To me, that was it's so creative. He's creative and it's scary. And yeah, it's original because we don't have many original kill. I love the iconics like the typical slasher, but there's no other killer like Freddy Krueger.
mhm,
So he has to. He's on my list. Wes Craven, props, man. Props to creating this character. He has to be in
yeah,
my top five. Number four.
awesome, great pick. Yeah, number 4. To your point too, not to get too much into the movies, but I love the filming techniques too that they use, especially in the first one where you don't know if you're in a dream or not. Like the techniques they use
Right.
that transition into dream world, it's so scary. And like you said, he can do things that nobody else can do because it's in your dream and anything's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, awesome pick.
Oh, we're getting down to it.
Here we go. Yeah, yep. Here we go. So we're at our top 3. Um, My number 3, and it's a doozy. It's a big one. It's Jason Voorhees. Dun, dun,
Okay.
dun, dun, number
Another
3.
overlap. So
Yes,
we have
yes.
three now with Freddy, Jason,
Hmm.
and Jack Torrance.
Yeah, some of the big iconic ones. I figured we would. I mean, it's
Yeah,
inevitable,
you have.
right?
I mean, you kind. It's
But
unavoidable.
what more can you say about Jason? You talked about the how iconic the hockey mask is, but he is just to me. I know you talk about Freddy and like what Freddy can do, but like to me, Jason is the epitome of a badass in terms of like villains. Just a fucking big brooding badass with a machete and a fucking mask. Like it doesn't get more simple. And the fact that he's so simple, like he's got his mother's voice in his head and he's just like you come to my camp like you're dying. Like I'm killing you. And
Right.
it's
You're in my
so cool.
territory. You're dead. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, we've already shouted her out, but I have it on my notes. A big shout out to Pamela Voorhees. She didn't make my list, obviously, but without her, there's no Jason for sure. But you just can't go wrong. Even some of the bad sequels, you can't go wrong popping in a Friday the 13th movie and just having fun with it. Even the ones that are going to be like lower tier for people, like you said, the kills are so cool throughout, and Jason is the one mainstay throughout. You have Jason throughout, and there's so many. The fact that like he is iconic, and then the volume of movies has to be appreciated too. But the fact that he's in so many movies and he's the same killer throughout the movies has to be, you know, not overlooked. But I put this in my notes. A part of I think what gravitated me towards Jason and how cool I thought he was I don't know about you, but as a kid, I never had the summer camp experience. I never went away to summer camp, like to a lake or anything, or I never did Boy Scouts. So like watching those movies, especially part 6 when they actually have the kids at
You
the
love
camp,
that one.
because yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Not
I
to
know you
give
do. I
play my
love that one
cards,
too.
but
Yeah.
that's actually the first movie in the franchise where kids are present in the camp.
Right.
All the other movies, it's just the counselors. But that resonated with me because it kind of I don't know, I never had that camp experience. So like I always rooted for Jason to like kill
Yeah.
them all because like I was jealous
I'm
in a
happy
way
you
as a
brought that
kid.
up because as you were talking, I was thinking. I think the reason why Jason's a lot of in our top five, whatever top tens, is because the characters are almost some of them are so despicable and unlikable. We're almost rooting. We're like, yes, he's gonna kill him now, and that makes you fall in love with the villain in some of
Yes,
these
yeah.
movies. So I think
Oh
that's a big
yeah.
part of it. Where in like a lot of these franchises, a lot of the protagonists we're like rooting for them, but in Friday the 13th and most of the movies we're almost rooting for Jason. Like, get this fucker, kill him now. We're
That's a
ready
good
for it.
point
Besides
because
the final girl, you know what I
the
mean?
way I look at these movies, like Jason is my protagonist. Like I don't want anything
That's what
bad to
I'm.
happen to
That's
Jason. Yeah. He's my boy,
So
but
yeah, some of these
yeah.
characters are so like horrible that you're like, all right, Jason, do your thing, man.
And the fact that he's so simplistic, he doesn't talk. He just has his mother like in his head, like get revenge on these camp counselors. And the fact that like he was left to drown when he was a kid makes you sympathize too. But like, yeah, I always root for Jason. Like, you want to root for that, like, brooding guy that like didn't do anything wrong and gets,
He's just
like,
unstoppable, man.
yeah,
He's a force of nature, literally.
he is. I can't wait to
So that
cover.
was
I know we've
that
been
your that
saying
so
this the
these are
whole.
your top three, right? That's
Yeah,
like
number
number three?
3.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I can't wait to
So we
cover
weren't far
Freddy
off.
versus Jason. I know we've been
Yeah,
saying a
that's
lot of movies that we can't wait
we
to
can
cover, but
yeah.
that's gonna be
So he was in both of our top five, so that's important. That's a
yes.
big thing.
Mhm.
All right, so we're getting this is top three territory now. This is
Oh, I can't wait
crazy
to
to me.
see what your top 3 is.
All
Or
right,
your number 3
my
is.
number three is the one that almost started some of I wouldn't call it slasher, but you can kind of incorporate it. We all go a little mad sometimes. Norman Bates is my number three. Anthony
Okay.
Perkins as Norman Bates. This movie is the definition of perfection. I mean, Alfred Hitchcock, come on. But Anthony Perkins' portrayal as Norman Bates, I think that might be the first time on film that we got the whole split personality performance. And it's
Mm.
just so creepy because you see the scenes when he's in the house and we think he's talking to his mom, but he's like doing her voice and his voice. It is that house alone is iconic, let alone Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates. And it just I mean, the shower scene when he's killing Janet Leigh, Nora Bates, it's just, his mom Nora he's dressing up as his mom, Nora Bates, and going in, and you're almost confused, you're like, "Is his mom alive?" But, I mean, everyone has seen Psycho by
Mm.
now, the twist is we all know the twist, but
Yeah, yeah.
I just think it was so unique and clever at the time, and his face, that last shot of the movie when he's just smiling at the camera,
Yeah.
and his mom's voice in his head, you're like, "Oh, I wouldn't even hurt a fly," and he just starts smiling. That scene sticks with
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
forever. Um, so yeah, Norman Bates, he doesn't get the credit he deserves, I don't think, for and he's in the. I think Psycho 2 is one of the most underrated sequels of all time. I don't know how familiar you are with that franchise, but that is a damn good sequel. And I know Anthony Perkins directed Psycho 3, and that was like an actual splatter slasher, but yeah, Norman Bates, there's something about him that just irks me because he's
Mm.
psycho, literally psycho. I mean, the name of the movie, but it's just something about that character that always because he seems like a charming dude who just wants to be a good guy, but underneath, he's a fucking killer,
Mm.
literally.
No, I'm
Mommy
really
issues,
glad.
man.
I'm really
Mommy
glad he made
issues.
your list because he's actually not
Yeah.
on my list. He's a great villain though. Just didn't quite make my list, but you didn't prefer Vince Vaughn? No, I'm
God.
just kidding. Yeah, Vince Vaughn is my number 2. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a movie.
Yeah, that's that we gotta cover. They talk about like cheesiness, 90s,
Yeah, but Norman Bates, I mean, and I
Yeah,
love
you
that.
can't go wrong
I
with
think
Norman
also
Bates.
that the original's in black and white. It also adds to the eeriness of it. You know what I
I'm
mean?
not familiar with the sequels, so I'll have
Okay.
to check
Oh, I'm
those out.
excited. Psycho 2
I
is amazing, dude.
this is gonna be a little bit surprising, but I'm not a huge Hitchcock fan.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I appreciate him and I appreciate his movies, but I'm not the biggest Hitchcock fan, so we'll have to talk about that in the future for sure and maybe like rank his movies. That would be
Oh
cool
yeah.
ranking to have. Yeah. But okay, great.
Yeah,
That's a
Norman
great
Bates.
number
Yeah,
3. Yeah.
yeah. He has to
I'm
be top there
surprised that
because he's an
that
OG.
cracked your top
He's an
3. Yeah,
OG, dude. Yeah,
I didn't realize you liked Psycho that much. That's an
I
interesting
love
little
Psycho. Love
cool.
it.
That's awesome. It's one of those movies where I mean, I don't have too many comments, but it's one of the few where like the movie is just as good as the actual villain. Like you get the iconic villain performance, but the actual movie is good. That is my favorite Hitchcock movie. Is Psycho.
Same. Well, just I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, it
yeah.
is. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, there goes our ranking, but I have to
I
just yeah.
mean, there's no other option in my
I
eyes.
mean, yeah, there yeah, I guess.
I mean, he has great movies, but to me, Psycho is what
Yeah.
people think of. The first thing they think of when they say Alfred Hitchcock is Psycho.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm surprised it made your top 3 because I was getting worried that it wasn't gonna be anywhere on either of our lists, and I almost, like,
Oh no,
felt bad for not mentioning him, but, no, I'm glad he made your top 3. I'm glad I held off, so alright, here we go. Um,
yeah, what's your top two?
my
What's your
number
number
2.
two?
Yeah. This is, it's funny because I put this in my notes, how this isn't on everybody's list, but it's not on your list because it was on your honorable mentions. And
Oh.
my number 2 is Bruce from Jaws.
Oh
Yeah,
yes, dude! I'm
it's
so happy
fucking
that you
Jaws,
put
man. Oh
Jaws.
my god, are you
That's
kidding
another
me?
one I like.
You
Was
know
like, do
me.
I put
Jaws is one
Jaws?
of
I
my
know.
favorite movies of all
Me
time. Are you
too.
kidding me?
Me
It's
too.
like it's one of those rare movies where it's like perfect. Like I wouldn't change a
It,
single
yeah.
shot from that movie.
No.
But Jaws, man, I said it
Yes, I'm
before,
happy.
like I couldn't go swimming in the ocean, let alone a pool without looking into the
I
deep
didn't
end
want to
and
go
seeing
like
if
in
there
the
was a
toilet.
shark.
Like he's gonna come through the toilet and get me.
Yeah. 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 I'm just so grateful for that movie. I'm so grateful for Spielberg for making that movie and taking a chance on that movie. And like you said, it's the first summer blockbuster, that iconic score. Donna, Donna, Donna.
It, it,
The sequels are fun. They're not the masterpiece
Jaws
that
2
the
is great.
original
That gets
is.
hate. I don't. Jaws 2 is
Yeah.
awesome,
I
and I
I
don't
like Jaws
understand.
2 a lot.
I
Yeah.
love Jaws 2,
And I know a lot of like shark lovers and stuff like
and I am too.
blame
Like, but
this
it's
movie,
just
blame this movie for like a lot of the fear of sharks and great whites, but that I feel like that's a little unfair. I mean, it just goes to show how, first of all, how effective the movie was and
right.
how good of a movie it was. So you have to recognize that. But like, you can't blame a movie for like its reaction on society. Like that's super
But I also
unfair.
think
I
you can
don't.
flip it and say like the point of that movie is almost to like leave them alone. It's their the ocean is their environment.
Yeah,
Leave them be. Let them be. Don't fuck with. It's their environment. They need to eat just like us.
yeah,
Um, and like even in the movie when they're killing the sharks, I feel bad when they have the scene when they get the one shark that's obviously not Jaws, Bruce, and they're like slitting him up. I'm like, damn, that poor shark
yeah.
is just slaughtered just because they're trying to catch a killer shark that's just doing its thing.
And to me, it actually had the opposite effect on me. Like I was scared shitless, but as I grew older, I actually had a fascination with sharks, and I loved watching,
Me too.
Shark Week on Discovery Channel. I feel like Jaws played a big role in that.
I mean, don't
Because
get me wrong. If I'm in the ocean and I see a great white next to me, I'm gonna be shitting my pants.
oh
But
yeah, no, I'm not gonna be like, ooh, fascinating. No, I'm gonna be scared
I'm
as
gonna think
fuck.
of Jaws and be like,
Yeah,
and I want to go back to what we said when we talked about it earlier. It's the fear because when they're in the water and you don't see the shark, it's so much more terrifying because you don't know where it is,
yeah,
and
I
that's
know.
his domain. The shark's domain. So it's just the way he filmed it is
Hmm.
it's a masterpiece, that movie, because
Yeah,
not only when we see the shark, but when we don't, it's like, okay, when's the shark gonna come? When is he gonna get them? There's just nothing that compares to Jaws. And I mean, Spielberg, he's still at it today, but he what he accomplished at the start of his career with that, I mean, it's just wow.
yeah. And just a quick shout out. It is based on a true story. It actually happened in New
Yes,
Jersey. The
yes, I
killings.
was gonna
I
say Jersey
actually
shout out.
Yeah, so shout out to all the victims that lost their lives. I actually work up in the area now where it happened, and I drive past. It's in Matawan, New Jersey. I drive past where the actual original shark attack happened with the little boy playing in the river. And there's an artist. I think it was in Weird New Jersey. If you ever read that magazine, he painted like a mural because there's like a little sewer tunnel that goes out
Okay,
into the river, and he painted like a shark's mouth around it. So it's like a shark. So it's like a little honorary tribute to it. So I think that's pretty cool. I drive past it all the time while I'm up at work. And quick shout out to Jersey.
yeah, that's all. I also work in Mattawan, so it's
Same
pretty
with
cool.
Friday the 13th. We didn't
Yep,
shout out
they
Jersey
filmed
for
the
that too.
original. Yeah, it takes
Yeah, and
place in New
it
Jersey,
takes
but
place in New Jersey too.
yeah,
I think it's a fake county in New Jersey, but
yeah, but
it's
it was
actually New
filmed and it takes
Jersey.
place in Jersey. So
Yeah.
wow, I'm so happy that Jaws made your list because I
Oh my
was
god,
so
dude.
anxious
I
over that.
like I
Yeah.
was like seething that it wasn't in your top 10. I was like, honorable mentions. What the fuck? But
Well,
I
you
had to
heard
try
my
to.
explanation. I just had to like, I was just like, oh,
No,
it
I
was
don't
hard for me.
accept it. I don't
It was
accept
hard
it.
for me.
I don't accept it. Fucking terrifying. Name
It's so
name
funny
something
because
more terrifying than a giant 25-foot great white man-eating shark. I mean, come on.
it did terrify me.
Yeah.
All right, let's. This is so funny because you're my number. You're number two. was my honorable mention, and my number 2 was one of your honorable mentions that I'm mad
Yep.
at you for.
Yeah.
What's your favorite scary movie, man? It's fucking Ghostface. Come on.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Saw that coming.
Roger L.
All
Jackson
right, let's
does
hear it.
not
Let's hear it.
he needs all right, he needs to win an award for his voice acting because he is the consistent throughout all 5 gonna be 6 movies.
Yeah.
So that's the one consistent, and what I wanna comment on, you brought up is because you couldn't really bring yourself to include it because there's someone different behind the mask, you know?
Mhm.
My opinion on it, and actually, if you watch the interviews for the Scream 5 that came out last year, Nev Campbell actually said this exactly how I feel. She's a babe, love her. Oh, she's the best. She is the final girl. But anyway, the
Mhm.
new directors, they were like trying to be practical with like how do we shoot him to like kind of like hide his height or like because the killers are different heights and all that. And
Yeah.
she was like, guys, you're thinking too much into it. Like Wes said, once that costume and mask's on, the killer becomes Ghostface. It doesn't matter who's under the mask. Ghostface is his own entity once you put that mask on. And that's how I look at it too, is that until the killers are revealed at the end of every movie,
Yeah.
Ghostface is its own being. It's just its own iconic.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if they don't match the height. Who cares? It's just because it's Ghostface throughout the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
entire
I always
movie.
thought that was stupid
S-
too. Yeah.
So
That
that's my
people
kind
would
of
like
argument
nitpick
to
that.
what you were saying. You had to pick because there's so many different killers. To me, it's Ghostface until the end of every movie. It's just
Okay.
Ghostface. So I don't know if that makes sense to you and the listeners, but that's where I come at it
Mhm.
from. Is that he's just once they put on the costume, they get this Ghostface power. That's how he's
Mm.
sprinting, doing whatever, he's catching up to everybody. He seems bigger than the actual killer because it's Ghostface. That's my
Okay.
argument to why he earns his spot as a villain because he's not. He is a real human underneath the mask. He's not a Freddy Krueger or Jason, but it's just he's the same in every movie, literally the same in every movie until the killer is revealed. It's just so. I mean, we were kids in elementary school. Everyone was Ghostface. It's literally the costume of Halloween. Ghostface.
Mhm.
It's it's like the it reinvented. He reinvented the slasher icon in the mid '90s when the genre was like super stale. I mean, like I said, the lines "You hang up with me again, I'll gut you like a fish." I mean, "Hello, Sydney." These
Yeah.
are all time cinema lines for me. I mean, you still didn't tell me your name. Why is that? Because I want to know who I'm looking at. That's terrifying. On the phone with Casey Becker in the
Yeah.
opening. It's so good. And
I
Scream
know.
2 is my I mean, if you know me, Scream 2 is so special to me. So I think the two Screams that take place in the '90s and not the 2000s that more than deserve earn Ghostface a spot on this list. I mean, I can go on all day about Ghostface and Scream, so I don't want to.
Yeah.
But
I know.
he is he's my number 2. It's special to me. And like I said, we're '90s kids, and when we went to school for Hall, I
Yeah.
mean, people can't. Everyone was Ghostface at one point. Very special to me. Um, yeah, there's no way he wasn't going to end up on my list. Ghostface.
That those are good points, and that's part of what my struggle was, and that's why I flip flopped. But I guess the only comment I would have to that is a big criteria for me in liking a Scream movie in terms of like my rankings in the franchise is the reveal. I'm a big fan of the reveal at the end, and if it's not a great reveal, it kind of lowers the movie as a whole for me. So I guess because I appreciate the reveal at the end so much, it's hard for me to separate the two. I know, like you said, like he's his own entity when before the reveal, but because the reveal is so important to me, it's hard for me to do that. So that's kind of my only comment on that. And but yeah, talk about like you said, icon of the '90s. He is the slasher icon that helped the '90s, chug along. I mean, he
That
really,
franchise and
yeah.
Ghostface and Scream reinvigorated the horror genre when it
Oh,
was out of style and stale. So yeah, and I think both are perfect because I think the reveal and that lead up to it are perfect because you know how I feel.
I
But
have strong opinions, but we will
I
save that. We will
we're
save
gonna get
that.
into
Yeah.
it. But yeah, I mean I can go on endlessly about his lines, but like I just want to give Roger L. Jackson another shout out because obviously we never see him. He's just the voice, but
Hmm.
that's a voice that's also like just as important as Chucky's voice, Brad Dourif. I mean, he's
Yeah.
Ghostface. He's the voice of Ghostface. So yeah, it was never not going to be my top two. I mean,
Hmm.
Ghostface. Yeah,
It's going to be interesting. Scream 6. We'll see how they play on that because Not to spoil it for people that are avoiding spoilers, I guess mute the episode. But in the trailer, he even says like, "I'm not the same." What's the
Right.
line? Like, "I'm
I'm
not the same
something
Ghostface.
different. I'm
I'm
something
something
different.
different." So I wonder if they're going to play on that and the comments that Wes and Neve made. Do you
Yeah,
know what I
I
mean?
wanna go, I wanna do an episode of, like, what we want or what we, think's gonna happen in Scream 6, so we'll get to that at some point
Yeah,
before it
because
comes
you're
out, but,
saying that like when they don the costume, they all kind of elevate themselves into this
right.
one
And now
entity,
they're
but
literally
maybe
commenting on, like
but
right,
maybe now they're going to comment on that, and
right.
yeah, that's going to be interesting. So hopefully you like it. I mean, you're going to like it because it's Scream, but
Well, I mean, it's Scream 6 has a lot of potential, but it's also taking some huge risks, starting with
yeah,
not having the lead of the franchise, so I'm
yeah,
it's my favorite franchise, but I'm very you know, I love Scream,
okay,
I don't want anyone to ruin my precious baby.
yeah,
So,
yeah, that
yeah,
comes
and
out soon. So I think we're going to be
yes.
start covering some of those. We're going to do some
Yeah, I
Scream
wanna do
episodes
at least the
soon.
first movie, and then I wanna do an episode of what we want or things gonna happen in Scream 6, and then we'll do, like, a ranking after the movie, and then get into the sequels at some point.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. All right, here we go. Our number one. Um,
Our
I guess it's a bit anticlimactic, especially if you're watching on YouTube. But do you want to do it together, or I
Yeah,
mean, we should just do it. Talk about it together.
yeah, we're gonna
But
have to go all in.
uh, my number one is Michael Myers, The Shape. I
And
mean,
guess
was there
what? My
any
number
doubt?
1 my number 1 is Michael Myers, The
Oh,
Shape.
really? Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Wow, that's a shocker. Yeah. I
He is the
mean,
face of horror. It's the
it's
face I
it's
don't
a
care.
no brainer.
He is the horror
Yeah.
icon. It's
Yes.
Michael Myers. He's the
Yep.
slasher. And I think it's cool because I know you Scream pays so much homage to Halloween. I mean, look at their masks; they're both white, and it's just so.
Hmm.
Michael Myers is he's the OG slasher as we know it. You know, the once we got the whole slasher rules and all that stuff. You know, the slasher
Yep.
cliches. He created all of that, and what I love about Michael Myers is especially I mean, some of the sequels, they get into too much explanation, but the first one is just so mysterious. He's the shape.
Hmm.
We don't have an
Yeah.
explanation why he's
Yep.
doing what he's doing. And John Carpenter, he just uses him so perfectly. I mean, how we can talk about iconic shots. What shot in that movie isn't iconic of him? I mean, when he's a kid, when he's outside holding the knife in the clown costume. But then when we get him as adult Michael Myers, when he's standing outside the house across the street when Tommy's looking at him, I mean,
Hmm.
when he appears in the shadows when Laurie's in the house and he just John Carpenter films it. He's like coming out of the darkness, like approaching his prey. It's just, oh, he's perfect, Michael Myers. Especially
Yeah.
like, even if you break it down, even if there was just one movie, the 1978 movie, he would still be my number one. That's how
Yeah.
perfect it was.
Yeah. We can spend 2 hours on not
I
only
know.
the movie but just Michael Myers. I mean, it was the first slasher movie I'd ever seen as a kid,
Right.
and it's just so fucking scary. I remember like actually thinking as a kid, like I would watch that movie and then I would like go to bed at night and I couldn't
Like, is he
sleep, and
gonna
I
be in
would
my
think to
house? Yeah.
myself, yeah, I would think to myself like, shit, he could be in my neighborhood. He can be
Right. He
outside
could
my
be
house
hiding in
right
your
now.
closet. He could be hiding
Yeah,
like
he could be
because
in
you know
my
how he
closet.
likes to
And then I
appear.
would
Yeah.
have to like I would have to remember, like, okay, no, this place takes place in Illinois. Like, he's far away. He would have to like take a bus all the way to New Jersey. Like, I would try to rationalize it in my brain why he wouldn't be in my specific neighborhood. That's how effective and how scary he was.
You know what's
So,
scary about him? Like, I don't obviously compared to Jason is all for the kills, Michael is for the stalk and then the
mhm.
kill. He
Yeah.
likes to, like, torment
Oh, yeah.
and slowly take his time and play, and
Hmm.
it's a game for him. He wants to lead up to that, and he stalks his I think stalking is the most horrifying and terrifying part of it. It's so and his
Yeah.
we didn't even talk about his breathing alone is iconic. The
Oh, yeah.
breathing shots alone is just, oh,
You
so
commented
good.
on how like in the original he's just the shape and we don't get much backstory, and then the sequels it kind of maybe takes it too far.
And some of them, not all of them, some of them.
I definitely agree with you. But I'm coming around um to the fact that we have these different timelines now and these
I
different
agree.
lores. I kind of like having options.
It's literally a
Um
choose your own adventure, like, what are you looking for
yeah,
tonight? What kind
I'm
of Michael
starting to
Myers,
appreciate that. And
Me
then,
too.
like, I'm not a huge I guess you call it Thorn trilogy guy, but now that we have other options, it's making me look at that one like,
Yeah,
okay, like the fact that I have this other option, I don't have to love this other one. So it actually makes me like
I
it a little
agree.
bit better, if that makes
I
sense.
agree. No,
Because
I
it's
agree.
like you said, it's a pick your own.
I like
So I
cannot.
love, yeah,
I used to hate the Curse of Michael Myers, like despise it with a
yeah,
passion because it in my opinion it goes way too far into the
yeah.
cult and like
Oh,
it
yeah.
makes Michael Myers seem like
Yeah.
not the Michael Myers we know. But I'm coming around to that just for like how vicious he is in it.
Yeah,
But it's just something about those first two movies though that just
I know.
oh, it's just perfection and
I
he's
know
the
we're
way he
both,
even walks.
I know we're both big fans of the original sequel too. I know a lot of
Oh,
people don't
that's my
love Halloween 2,
first of all, those people can
but
just get away from me. But yeah. I don't understand the hate for Halloween 2. It's amazing. It's literally the most like the original. The original is regarded as one of the best movies of all time, not even horror movies. So
mhm,
I don't understand that. But even though when he tilts his head, it's just so everything he does, all of his
mm,
movements are what we think of when we think of a horror slasher, the iconic
mhm.
head tilt. How many horror movies have
Oh,
tried
yeah.
to imitate that? You know,
My
how
favorite
everything.
kill, Bob.
Exactly, Bob.
Got my favorite
When he
kill
just
right here.
and you know what it
Yeah.
is? Because
Little Bobble.
he's admiring his art, he's
I
admiring the
know.
kill. I like how he
So,
sets up the
like,
bodies,
it
yeah.
tells you that something's in there, but it never gives it away, like, what he's
Right.
thinking. But you know, like, the gears are moving because, like you said, not only does he admire the kills, but he stages the kills. I mean,
Yes.
in the bedroom where he stages the
I
pumpkin, the
l oh,
jack-o'-lanterns, I mean, so he knows what is scary, like, for his
exactly.
victims. When he's stalking them, he's like, "I'm gonna stage these kills because it's gonna freak them out." So, he's not totally gone. So, it's like, that's even more mysterious to me, the fact that, like, you don't know just how much, like, does he understand people when
Right,
they're talking to him? Or is he just, like, laser
right.
focused on, killing? So, yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say. Um, just a quick comment on my list. I know a theme, I think you pointed it out a couple, episodes ago. You said how I kind of like more backstory and stuff, and I like to dive into the villains. I just want to point out that my top three villains, Jason, Jaws, and Michael, none of them talk.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting.
I do appreciate a mysterious villain that just kind of is in the shadows and stuff and doesn't have dialogue. So that's an example of when done right. I do appreciate that. So I just wanted to point that out that,
Yeah.
I don't always like the super layered villains.
Yeah, this I mean, number 1, I mean, it really could not be another number 1. I mean, the blackest eye, the devil's eyes, it's Michael Myers, man. I mean, he is the
Yeah.
mascot of Halloween. He is the first
Yeah.
thing that he was my introduction to the slasher genre when I was 6 years old. Uh, I remember my dad's like, "Do you know who Michael Myers?" I'm like, "No, who's Michael Myers?" And then, we went to rent the movie
Mm.
from the video store, and
Yeah,
just I
yeah.
fell in love. It's that movie, it's just perfect. It's perfect. And
Mm,
Michael Myers is the ultimate. It will never not be number 1 in my book.
yeah.
And I can't wait to get into
Awesome.
this franchise. Talk about getting into movies. This
It's
franchise is
yeah.
gonna be a fun one.
We have so much to get to. We are just
Yeah.
scratching the surface on this podcast, so I'm really looking forward to that. Why don't we run through our lists
Okay.
one more time? You can go first. You can just go from 10
Alright.
to 1 just to give a quick recap.
Alright. So my number 10 is The Fisherman from I Know What You Did Last Summer, Ben Willis. Number 9, Jack Torrance, The Shining. Number 8, Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs. Number 7, Chucky, Child's Play franchise. Number 6, Kurt Barlow from Salem's Lot. Number 5, the badass Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. Number 4, Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street. Number 3, Norman Bates, Psycho. Number 2, Ghostface from the Scream franchise. And number 1, Mikey Myers. Michael Myers from Halloween.
Great. So you have the big three, Jason, Freddy, and Michael, all in your top five, right?
Yeah, there's no.
Yeah.
I know it's like cliche, but there's no way
No,
around it
no,
for me.
that's I
Yeah,
mean, slasher is your go-to. So
exactly, exactly.
exactly, yeah. I'll just run through my top 10. So number 10, we have Vince Vaughn's from Psycho. I mean, sorry, no, Dracula. uh, we got Dracula. Number 9, Pinhead. Super creepy Pinhead. Go check that out. Number from Hellraiser, of course. Number 8, Freddy Krueger. Uh, People are thinking to be upset at me that he's only number 8, but I gotta stay
Dude,
true.
I have Ben Willis Fisherman on my list. No one's gonna be upset at you.
Yeah. Number 7, The Headless Horseman. Love The Headless
I
Horseman.
love that pick,
Num-
by the way.
Number 6, Dr. William Weir from Event Horizon. Go watch that movie again, Anthony. It's fucking creepy as hell. Love that movie. Number 5, HAL 9000, the creepiest robot in cinema history. And then we get the big guys. Jack Torrance at number 4. I mean, Jack Nicholson's so freaking iconic. Jason Voorhees at number 3. Just like the brute of a slasher villain. So iconic. Number 2, we got Jaws. I mean, what can you say about Jaws? Just a giant great white shark. And of course, number 1, Michael Myers. There was never any doubt. Um,
Yes.
I didn't
We
know
knew before
what
we
your list
started that
was,
we're
but
gonna
I
have the
knew.
same number. We knew our number
Yeah.
ones. We knew.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
week for our never split up, it's gonna be different because we can't say who agrees with our number one. It's gonna have to be who agrees with our overall list more because we both have the same number one.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, let's
So
do
we'll
that.
have
So
to do the
we'll
poll like that. Who agrees with whose
we'll
list more? Yeah.
yeah, so our poll this week, guys, please vote on Spotify and Twitter and Instagram and stuff. It's gonna be who agrees with our top 10 lists the most, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I
Keep it
know
easy.
everyone's is gonna be different, but who do you like the most? And
And
we want to
definitely
hear
give
from
us
you
our
too.
top 10. Yeah, give
Yeah.
us yours top
Give
10s.
us yours. If we missed anybody, if you're pissed off that we didn't include anybody, definitely let us know. I think we covered a lot of the big guys though, pretty much.
Yeah, and that's why we had to do honorable mentions because there's
I
so
was
many. You have to
surprised
give
that you
shout
didn't have
outs.
any
Yeah.
more Carpenter, like the Thing and stuff. I was a little surprised you didn't
No,
have
that's why I
that.
gave him a shout out in the because the sci-fi. I love the thing. I mean, it's awesome. But I had it.
Yeah,
It's not top 10 villain for me at least.
Christine. Yeah,
Christine is. I know. I felt so bad not bringing up Christine, but I
yeah,
couldn't put a car on my list too.
yeah. Well, awesome. I had a lot of fun with this episode. I thought it was a really
Yeah,
great
this is a
episode.
good
So
special.
yeah, I can't wait to do more rankings. We'll get into our favorite modern like post 2000 villains down the road, and we definitely want to do more of these lists. So if you guys have any ideas or suggestions for ranking lists for us, it could be anything. It could be certain characters like favorite final girls, or it can be certain genres like favorite um movies from a certain genre. We want to do a bunch of different creative lists. So definitely give us your suggestions because we could definitely use it. And yeah, I had a ton of fun. Those were two solid lists. Any final thoughts, Anthony?
Yeah, no, I liked our how our lists were like a little similar, but they also were so different. So I think that was
Hmm.
cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Again, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at neversplituppod. And the polls will be on Twitter. They're going to be probably posted on Instagram because you can't do it as a
Yeah, I
post. It's
hate
only a
that rule. It's
story.
so annoying.
So later on in the
And
week, we'll
Spotify
post that
too.
as a story. And yeah, if you listen on Spotify, the poll will be on Spotify. Definitely vote. And then the winner will get an advantage for next week's episode. Do you want to announce next week's episode, Anthony?
Yeah, so we're gonna get into the holiday spirit of love, and we're gonna cover the original My Bloody Valentine just before Valentine's Day. So you
Awesome.
have that ready for you guys to listen or watch right before the holiday. So that'll be a fun one. The original 1981. And if you guys want to watch it, either buy the Blu-ray from Scream Factory, or it's on HBO Max. But make sure when you click it, you go to the extras and watch the extended version because the original theatrical release, the MPAA, made them cut out all the bloody kills. So you want to make sure you get it in all of its full bloody glory. So yeah,
Hmm.
that'll be a fun one to cover. That's another
And
cool
that's
killer, the miner. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's actually a cool killer too. So that's on HBO Max. You said
Yes. I believe it might be on
okay.
Prime too, but I know HBO Max has the extended cut.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely watch the extended cut. I'm excited for that. So that'll get us into the Valentine's week. It'll give you guys time to listen to that. Cuddle up next to your loved one and listen to that episode. That's going to be fun. But for now, this is the Never Split Up podcast. Thanks so much for listening and watching on YouTube. We'll see you guys next week. See you later.